Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse episode 270. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Where's Connor?
Connor was supposed to be here, and he called in to work at the last minute, which is why we'd actually moved the recording a day early, and so I found out today that I'd have to read all my books by a certain time, and then that little shit then said, oh sorry, you called into work. So we didn't have to move the recording a day forward, and I could have just been ready tomorrow at the normal time.
But I guess that means no ComiXology top 10 then. Oh, shame.
What? What sort of logic you run under?
Well, I mean, last minute, and, you can't do it if it's not Saturday. So,
Friday's just as good. The only time it felt compromised is when we had it on, like, the Wednesday.
Oh, no. I severely misplayed my hand.
Friday's fine. We've done it in Friday tons of times. Nothing wrong with Friday. So, hey-ho.
Pete, anything eventful happen on Sunday?
Oh, Sunday was all out. Which, according to the reports, it did over 200,000 buys, which is the biggest wrestling non-WWE pay-per-view since 1999.
Good lord.
Which puts it in perspective, just how long that market's been just
in one
trapped.
person's hands.
Yeah, so.
Yep. Very, very exciting. Me watching it at 2:30 in the morning. Coming home from my concert, try not to wake the wife with the appearance of one Adam Cole.
It was very eventful, we'll just say. It was a very eventful pay-per-view with very few far between down spots. Let's be honest, it was really just that one Paul White match that was a down spot. But I skipped that.
So I watched it, and from the time it took, so that match happened between the Punk and Darby match in the main event, which was Omega and Christian. From the time it took me to come upstairs to change real quick, out of my concert clothes, into some lounging clothes to watch the main event, that match was over. So technically it played, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, that was my piss break match. Yep. So, yeah. That is what it is. But, cage match was fantastic. Bryan Danielson showed up. It was all very pleasant, and I enjoyed all of it. So
I will say his new song on my subwoofer hits very hard, and I was not expecting that, and I felt kind of bad again watching this at 2 a.m.
Yeah, and the success
good times all around.
Success is carried forward as well because they had their best rating since the premiere episode of Dynamite this week, and finally on the same week beat Raw in the key demo, which is the first time they've ever done that. So,
without Jericho too.
Without Jericho and without Paige and without
it helps when you have one CM Punk and one Adam Cole and one Bryan Danielson. So,
but it shows that they've got a lot of people they can rotate through, which is nice. But that's that's a DC Comics podcast. You might be a little confused because we started with off-topic stuff.
But wrestling's all like comics sometimes, so there's some fun crossover.
There's a lot of similarities. Heels turns, face turns, factions.
Can't wait for a half turn in one of this week's books.
I mean, what was that portal scene from Avengers, if not just someone returns in wrestling? That's that moment. That's what that was.
That's 100% what I felt on All Out. When Wong goes, what, you wanted more? That's how I felt by the main event. I mean, so yeah, man.
So there you go. But yeah, it's a DC Comics podcast. We get together, we talk about the books we read this week, and coming up on today's show, it is the week 1 show of the month, but meaning that it's the first week of books of the month. We have Infinite Frontier issue 6, Batman 112, Green Lantern Annual 2021, Green Lantern issue 6, The Swamp Thing issue 7, Black Manta issue 1, Batman Catwoman issue 7, The Nice House in the Lake issue 4, and I've got a Patreon book to settle, which is Animal Man issue 11. So that's what's coming up on today's show. Big difference from last week one. Last week one, I think it's because like 3 or 4 books got delayed, which were meant to be out last week. So week one was supposed to be fairly quiet, and it kind of turned into a more, I wouldn't say packed, but healthy, much healthier week. So that's what's coming up book wise. But have no fear, because there's always time to begin with everyone's favorite segment, and that is the ComiXology Top 10. I feel like, David's doing his New 52 show now, which you can find on the Comics From The Multiverse channel. If you want the audio version, you can search the Not So New 52 and get it on your podcast app. But David's using little music interludes when he's like going to a new section, and I almost feel like when I say it's time for the ComiXology Top 10, I want a little jingle. I want a little bit of music to play.
Just me screaming into the void. Sometimes the void screams back.
So, number 1, Matt, take a guess.
Batman.
It is Batman 112.
Ew.
Yeah, shocking state of affairs, isn't it? So that's cool. Number 2 is Excalibur 23 X-Book. Number 3, Amazing Spider-Man 73. Number 4, X-Force 23 X-Book.
X-Book.
Number 5 is Batman Catwoman issue 7. And then number 6 is Infinite Frontier issue 6.
Okay.
So that's neat enough. And then number 7 is Daredevil 34. I'm just double checking here. Is that
still?
Yeah, it's still Zarsky. Yeah, I'm just checking. Yeah.
There you go.
So that's 34 issues deep now, that run. That's quite nice. I read the first, I don't know, what, 15 to 18-ish issues, and I really liked it.
You guys were big on that, and I need to go check it out, because I'm behind on everything Marvel right now.
I mean, it was excellent from what I read. So I'm looking forward to reading that run when it's all said and done. Then number 8, you got Dr. Aphra issue 14, and then War of the Bounty Hunters issue 4 at 9. So that's 2 Star Wars books back to back. And then Defenders issue 2 is number 10. So a lot of Marvel in the top 10 this week, which is 7 out of the 10. So
hey, where's Swamp Thing at?
Swamp Thing is down at number 18.
Okay, not too bad, but guys, you need to be reading that so we can get a sequel series, please.
Interestingly, 11 and 12 are the Suicide Squad Annual and Suicide Squad 7, neither of which we read, because we were not reading Suicide Squad. Nice House in the Lake is number 13, Blue and the Gold's 14, which Matt just forgot was out, and that's why he's not read it.
Yeah, it's been a week, and it ended up being a short week, and yeah.
Suicide Squad Get Joker did come out, and I did say last month that I was lately going to read issue 2 of that just to see it, because a lot of it was pretty enjoyable, but it had some really bad elements as well. Obviously, this week turning into an 8-9 book week, kind of put a damper on that, because it's also a kind of a long issue. It's like a 60-70 page issue, so I might go back and catch up if there's a quiet week, like later in the month. I might go back and read that and see how that progressed. Green Lantern issue 6 came in at number 17, which is right before Swamp Thing at 18, and then the Green Lantern Annuals right after that at 19, and that kind of wraps up all the DC stuff on page 1 of this ComiXology chart. But yeah, none of it is too low. Like, it's all, even the lower stuff on that first page is still reasonable, at least. And it's notable that all the While the Last Man trades, which are not, they're still on sale, they're still half price, but they're not like quarter price like they were last week. Right. So they're still riding that the TV show's about to debut wave and selling a bunch of trades as a result. And I've read the whole thing. I highly recommend it. It's 5 volumes. If you get the big proper volumes, there are 10 issues each. And just get those. They're great. So cool. There you go. There's not really any news this week. I mean, technically, Batman Day plans got revealed, but they're not really that eventful, honestly. I mean, obviously,
Sorry.
it's Matt's favorite day of the year, obviously, but
I don't know.
yes, it's your favorite day. Matt's a big fan.
No, that's a lie.
If Matt ever took off his
if Dick Grayson's Batman, then yes, but Bruce Wayne, no.
if Matt took off his shirt, if Matt ever has a reason to take off his shirt on this podcast, he will reveal a giant black bat symbol tattoo on his chest.
I will show everybody right now to show how not true that is. Yesterday was chest day, so don't make bets you can't cash in on, Pete. I said we don't need this getting flagged.
Yeah, I'd rather not. Although, interesting, actually, I noticed some of my chest hairs today. For the first time today, I noticed some of my chest hairs are grey. And I was like, oh, damn.
It's not fun.
I just aged like 20 years in the space of a day.
I pulled a white hair out of my beard. Not gray, white. and I threw it into a fire. Never to be seen again. I don't need to be reminded of my mortality. Thank you.
Yeah, I've actually got quite a lot of grey at the edge of my beard. See if I go just look there-ish, right at the sort of the corner on both sides. That's pretty
because
grey.
I have a red beard. I get multicolor in here. There's some brown. Sometimes there's black. I've had gray in my beard for as long as I can remember.
Yeah, I've had it for a couple of years now at least.
Yeah, not white though. There's a hard difference. So, yeah. Or when you pluck a white hair off of your arm. Oh, no, thank you.
I haven't done that yet, but
yeah,
I look forward to it.
I promise.
Yeah, future is now, old man.
Yep.
Not much. There's a webtoon series that's been announced for Batman. For Bat Day.
I wish I understood why this was so controversial, because I see it all over Twitter. People praising it, but also saying how it's not going to work, and I don't understand. Like, it's just another way to get comics, I guess, right? Like,
I realize I just cracked an old age joke about Matt, but I'm going to like age myself here. I have no idea what a webtoon really is.
Yeah. I'm sure it's just like I'm sure it's like a comic strip that you read it via an internet browser or something.
No, I think it's a cartoon maybe, because it says first episode debuts 8th of September at 1 p.m. Eastern.
Now this becomes like a Vince McMahon Googling scenario. What is a web?
Here's a question. Do you think Connor would know the answer to that? Do you think Connor is up in the webtoons?
Not because he's significantly younger, but he's a little bit more juiced in to that side of fandom than we are. So James too. I think James is around closer to your age.
Sounds
I
about
feel
right.
like he would know.
Yeah.
I think he would know too, but I think us two, we're just like, unless it comes on our tablet or in physical form, we have no use.
I don't know if it's that. I think this might be just like geared a little bit more towards anime fans.
Yeah, it is, because it says they're a type of digital comic that originated in South Korea. They're mostly known outside the country during the inception. There's been a surge in popularity internationally, thanks in part to most of it being read on smartphones. So I'm guessing it's like it's kind of primed for handheld devices. So, again, it's just another way to read DC Comics, is what I'm getting. And I don't understand why people, a certain chunk are upset by that, because DC will find a way, if it's popular, to put it on ComiXology or in physical form. I mean, look what they've done with the digital first books. Those all get a print run for the most part, or at least a trade. You know. So if this is successful, you'll have a way to read it.
The next thing, this one is a bit weird. Released on September 24th, which is not Batman Day. Batman Day is the 18th. But they'll be releasing a limited edition comic book created with esports, digital lifestyle, and media platform FaZe-Clan. I don't know. FaZe-Clan? I don't know if I'm saying that right. What is this?
I know I just said about people being upset about webtoons. I'm going to get upset about this. And I know I've had the conversation with people about esports versus actual sports, and I just don't want. At the end of the day, I'd rather just watch people play sports than watch people play video games. That's just me. And if you're into it, cool.
To me, there's no difference. I think they're both painfully boring. But I mean,
there you go. Well, at least you're consistent, Pete. At least we can count on you to be consistent. However, with
I would much rather watch someone play a single player game than I would watch an esport or an actual sport.
Well, I think that just leans into your you like storytelling, whatever form.
Yeah.
You know?
So I mean, this could be pronounced phase, but it's spelt with a capital Z. What?
I know it's phase.
Is it phase?
No, I don't know. But if it's phase, phase, fuzzy, whatever, we don't know, and we look like idiots regardless.
The capital Z makes me think it's phase, is how it's probably pronounced. The comic will team Batman with superhero versions of the Phase clan members like, and this is, brace yourself for this list: Phase Banks, Phase Apex, Phase Temper, Phase Rain, Phase Adept, Phase Rug, and Phase Blaze. What am I saying? What are the words that are coming out of my mouth? I don't understand anything I'm saying.
I bet you my tech at work knows this because he used to work in esports. He was a commentator. If I text him right now, he'd probably know.
Yeah,
I don't want to bother him though.
The only other things is that they're highlighting certain runs on DC Universe Infinite and something we already knew about, which is the Batman the World sort of preview version, because obviously that's a full graphic novel that came out. They're doing like a teaser, like free thing or close to free.
God. Actually, when you think about it, this is kind of a cool, like not even a rags to riches, but from a bottom. They started off just doing this stuff, and now they have like a partnership with DC Comics and a partnership with McDonald's.
Is this like the Phase clan you're talking about?
Yeah, I pulled them up. It's an esports team basically. They were a Call of Duty clan founded by 3 players. So, good for them, I guess. I mean, this is like a not for me, and that's okay. This is a lot like when they did the Fortnite crossover comic. You know, I'm happy to.
I mean, this is more alienating to me because like esports is, because I like video games, but this is one of these things. Whenever I'm watching a game conference and they'll do a little section on promoting their esports, I'm like, oh my god, just get through this crap. I don't care. Get back to the games. I'll begrudge it though. Like, people want to play video games and compete, and people want to watch that, then by all means, knock yourselves out. It doesn't really affect me. It's
my god. I gotta ask Rob because they're outside of Atlanta. I guess they're stationed in Atlanta too, and they're using the Atlanta Falcons color scheme.
Oh yeah, they all have uniform. I've seen the small amount of clips that I've seen is that they come in like almost like boxers where they've all got matching like tops.
Why isn't Kenny Omega involved in this?
I'm sure he's done fighting game tournaments. He's definitely been part of those things.
But like, yeah. By the way, I watched Being the Elite really for the first time in a long time and found out the Bucks and him are buying their the clothes that they wear, the ridiculous stuff, at Burlington Coat Factory, which is like a discounted chain out here. It's like where clothes that are out of fashion go and you buy them for cheaper. And that makes me like those guys as humans even more. Because it makes it look like they're spending a ton of money on all this ridiculous, like when they pull out the Jordan with the thumbtacks on it, right? You're like, that's an expensive shoe. But then find out that they're still shopping at Burlington and they're EVPs of this, huge company now. It's funny to me. But yeah, I'm looking at these and just reading the names. I feel like I'm in the Matrix.
Well, there was a new trailer for the Matrix 4.
And I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I watched it yet.
I don't care. I'm getting to the point at almost 36, and I don't feel like I have to take part in every conversation. That if people are excited for the Matrix, let them be excited. I don't need to weigh in.
Well, I do a sci-fi podcast, so it's inevitable that I have to deal with it.
Of course. Well, it's the same with Dune. I'm happy people are excited for Dune, but seeing that trailer, I don't want to watch it and knowing that it's Villeneuve, it's fine. I don't have to have an opinion.
I am
Just
more
move
interested in Dune than I am any Marvel movie that's coming out in the next 4 years.
Okay, cool. I'm happy for you, Pete. You're also talking to the guy that irrationally loves Kong Skull Island. So again, what do I know? I know nothing.
You know, I'm just imagining locking Matt in a house for like a week and just having like an itinerary of movies that he's going to have to watch while he's there. And it's not even stuff that's completely torturous. It's not like I'm just going to make you watch nothing but Refn or whatever, but like just different things that I know you've not sampled that you might hate, but you
More
might
than likely.
but you might see the beauty in them. And not even.
I mean, I can appreciate good filmmaking. Like Under the Skin was not for me, but that movie has stuck with me whether I wanted it to or not.
It's a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, so
phenomenal.
But yeah, that stuck with me. But yeah, no. Again, I'm just realizing, it's okay to not have an opinion. It wears me out. I found my lane. I'm sick with comics and certain movies and sports. We're almost to hockey season. We're about a month out. So football season this weekend. Rams play on Sunday. That's very exciting. So yeah. Enjoy Dune, Pete. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you.
You have to let me know how good Batista does in it, because I love that man.
Oh yeah,
It's good to see him.
I forgot he was going to be in that, to be honest.
That's what stuck out of the trailer to me the most. Okay, is there's Dave Batista and Oscar Isaac. So yeah.
It was all about the space. It's all about the space, Matt.
Sure. Pumpkin spice, yes. Dune spice, no. Oh my god, that's a shirt. My big stupid face on it. Come on.
I've never had pumpkin spice, so I can't really weigh into this debate.
Do you like pumpkin, Pete? Is that big over?
Pumpkin's not that common. Nah.
Yeah, okay. It gets a little overboard with certain things. However, a good pumpkin spice coffee in the fall, really hard to beat. Just can't have it too much. Just like with most things. But I am a fan of pumpkin. Like from fall from like September to December, I eat as much pumpkin as I can get my hands on. Like pumpkin pie, pumpkin bread. Ugh, so good. I mean, pumpkin pie is mostly sugar, so of course it's good. But it has that little hint of pumpkin.
And positive movie news, though. Universal have buckled, and they're going to put Halloween Kills on Peacock when it releases. Day and date.
Great for you, right? Because I know theater going's off for you. I'm still going to see it in the theater, but if I like this one, it doesn't go off the rails like the 2018 one does in the last act, I can come home and watch it again.
I mean, theater going's not completely off limits. Like I was considering going to see Halloween Kills if they need be, but it is mighty convenient that it is not making me.
Yeah. I mean, after tonight when we're done here, after I eat dinner, I think I'm going to watch *Malignant*, the new James Wan. That's on HBO Max, and we don't have to go to the theater to see that. However, tomorrow I think we're going to go see *Candyman*, so I'm excited for that.
Well, see.
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, there's the stuff that's exclusive to theaters for the rest of the year. I don't think I need to risk anything. Like I think I'm good for the rest of the year. I'm happy to wait 45 plus days for Shang-Chi and Eternals.
Yeah, I mean, I was excited for Shang-Chi, so we went out of the way. It is nice to go to the theater, although the only theaters close to us are the luxury theaters, so you end up sitting in those real nice chairs, and you have plenty of room. You're not surrounded, you're not crammed with people. Like when I went and saw Godzilla versus King Kong, it was packed. Like I did not feel very comfortable. I was vaccinated, but there were still too many people, and people had forgotten how to be in a movie theater. However, the last couple that we've gone to one of the luxury theaters where you can pick your seat and see how many people. It's like one of the showings we were going to go to, just like full of people. So I went to the next showing, empty. And yeah, so able to pick our spots, but it does feel nice to go sit in the theater, but how sit in the darkness, enjoy the popcorn, and take in the movie. Um, but I haven't seen a scary movie like that yet, so we'll see how that goes tomorrow.
Ah, well. No, I had kind of an annoying, hectic week. There was work being done in the bathroom, so all of my recording plans for Monday through Wednesday were completely just destroyed. So some things were running late. I had to do some catch up today and yesterday. But my Saturday's free now, I guess. So,
Yeah.
I guess I'll either get some stuff done tomorrow or just take a day off.
A day off would be good. Like I'm skipping the gym to be here to record this today.
Mm-hmm.
After my trainer had yelled at me that it's okay to take a day off. You don't have to be so regimented. And I was like, yeah, don't tell that to my anxiety, because that's the only thing holding me in check right now. But he goes, no, days off are good. I was like, okay, I'm gonna listen to him. So I'm gonna share that to you, Pete, too. Yes,
Okay.
days off are good. Watch something without having it as content. Just sit back, watch. I would say watch something dumb, but you don't watch dumb things.
Well, no. I have actually been binging 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown. I'll explain this for you, Matt. Because you're like, what is that? So, I was rewatching What We Do in the Shadows, and I'm like early in season 2, so that obviously I'm a little bit behind, because my plan was to finish that before season 3 launched, and I didn't.
Yeah.
Now, a comedian that I really liked passed away a couple of weeks ago from cancer. Connor was a fan as well, and he was on a show. He was on a few things, but it was mainly on a panel show called 8 out of 10 Cats, which was like a news panel show, but it was all comedians, all just making fun of stuff and whatever. But there's also a game show that's been going for like 30 years on UK TV called Countdown, which is it's a daytime game show that airs Monday to Friday. It's mostly old people that watch it, and it's basically just
sounds like The Price is Right.
They pick a bunch of letters, right? They'll have 9 letters, and they have to try and make the biggest word possible out of the letters. And then there's the math round where they get a number and a set of numbers, and they have to try and make that number out of the other numbers, right? Simple enough stuff. Really straightforward sort of language and math skill stuff, right? 8 out of 10 Cats Does Countdown is basically the comedians who go on that show play that game show instead.
Gotcha.
So it's basically like a joke version of it, where they're constantly taking the piss, they're constantly cracking jokes. There's a couple of people from the actual show who are there to kind of make it work, because otherwise it wouldn't.
Right.
But it's all like on demand on Channel 4's streaming service, so I've been binging the shit out of that the last week.
That's good.
Because they started in like 2012, and it was going. I mean, it may still continue even without Sean Locke, who passed away, but the last season ended start of this year. So I've been tearing through that this week, and
gotcha.
it has been addictive. But it's not something American audiences that listen to this show really understand.
Almost sounds like Whose Line Is It Anyway meets Wheel of Fortune.
I mean, we do have Wheel of Fortune, and we do have what was the other one you said earlier?
Whose Line?
Who's like earlier? You said Price is Right, I think.
Well, Price is Right. Yeah.
So we have those. Countdown's this staple though. That's like I don't know. For whatever reason, it's been a thing since the 80s. There's like thousands of episodes of it at this point, because it's 5 days a week, and it's been that way since 1987 or something like that. But that is that is the silly non-content creating stuff I've been watching this week. But I will get back to What We Do in the Shadows after the fact. And
well, I'm waiting for the season to wrap, and then we're gonna watch them all. Because it's just for us, it's better that way.
Yeah, and when I'm done with that, I also have both last season and this current final season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine to watch, because I've not watched last season yet. So
us either. We have that. So, and Wellington Paranormal, is that airing on HBO? I'm waiting for that to wrap up too. It's from the film team of What We Do in the Shadows, and it's about the police in Wellington that you saw pop up in the film version.
That's actually, I think this aired a while ago in New Zealand. It's only just went
coming.
to HBO Max or whatever recently.
Yep. I found out about it through Tim when I saw him about a month or two back, and he was excited for it. So I had my eyes on it, and I saw it pop up under recommendations. So very, very excited. I'm trying to figure out this countdown game.
Are you looking up countdown?
Yes, I am, because I grew up watching the Game Show Network. When we got cable, there's not a lot of channels, so you could just put on the Game Show Network, and I saw all these weird, like 70s and early 80s games, and I wonder if I'd seen this.
We have a channel like that. It's called Challenge. At least it used to be. I don't know if it still is. But yeah, I mean, the countdown element, just to explain it, is like when they get their letters or the numbers to do their thing with, they get 30 seconds, and there's a big clock that counts down. Hence why it's called countdown.
Right.
I can't believe I'm explaining countdown on.
That's okay.
On an episode of this show. It's not even like I don't like regular countdown. Regular countdown's boring. Like it's people who think they're smart trying to play it properly.
Shots fired.
But 8 out of 10 casters countdown are comedians. You know, it's funny.
You're also talking to somebody that used to not do anything at 6:30, so I could watch Jeopardy.
Sure.
I was very popular in high school, if you can imagine.
I'm not against game shows. It's just not a particularly exciting game show.
Yes, I know, but when you said it's for people that are think they're smarter than everybody, yes, I was very good at Jeopardy, and
it's for. I mean, not that it's not super highbrow, and that anyone. It's one of those ones that you can still play along, right? You can still sort of try and play with the contestants. So I wouldn't say it's quite as highbrow, but it's probably just as dry as something like University Challenge. I don't even know if you have that, but
no, sounds like JV quiz though.
Probably the same thing, more or less.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can't beat something like Family Fortunes or Family Feud. You'll call that like simple, easy to play along with. Yeah, or catchphrase is a good one, or.
I mean, that's why Wheel of Fortune's so popular. She can play that at home.
It's just Hangman. I mean.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's all it is, really.
And then you laugh when they go to spin again and they hit the bank route, and the Schadenfreude sometimes, Yeah. And I haven't watched Wheel of Fortune in a very long time.
I haven't watched any. I mean, this parody version of a game show is the only game show I've watched in probably nearly a decade at this point.
Yeah, I haven't even watched. I've been out on Jeopardy. I used to watch a lot of cooking, like game shows. So like Cutthroat Kitchen, to where they start off with a set amount of money, and they can spend that money on buying sabotages for the other chefs. They all have to cook the same thing per round. So one of them might, like, you have to have your knife swapped out for like plastic knives and still cook the same dish. But the judge doesn't know or care what the sabotages are. They just care about how the food comes out. And there was a guy one time that when he won, yelled, "I can't believe I just won Chopped," which is another similar show. I lost it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, all my game show references are old though, because like I'm sure there's like popular game shows from the last 10 years that are pretty big, but I don't know any of them.
Most of them, judging from flipping through the channels or DVR, because we sell DVR things, most of them are like physical style game shows that just like, I don't know. There's more of like a car wreck element to them, to where you want to watch people kind of fail. Not in the Wipeout way, where that's kind of the point, but stuff like The Wall, or I think some of the other one. A Minute to Win It was another one recently. That you're just like, these aren't my bag. I'm fine just watching, the same stuff that I always watch.
Yeah, I don't know what modern game. I know some of the classic ones are still running in some form, but I don't know what a lot of the more recent British game shows that have been successful are. And I'm probably good not knowing, to be honest, but I did watch a lot when I was a kid. The game show channel was a regular, just put on while I'm doing stuff.
It's a good one.
So, hey ho. Well, that was a weird tangent. Shall we talk about comic books?
We should. So 'cause I'm getting hungry. So gotta whip through these.
Right, well, we got Infinite Frontier, issue 6, Joshua Williamson and Xermanico, who's the sole artist credited on this book, which is...
That felt so good.
Weird at this point.
Yeah.
I guess that explains why I wasn't on issue 5.
Yeah.
He was too busy working on issue 6 by his lonesome. Which is... although, admittedly, I think you can tell that maybe this is a little bit rushed by his standards.
Yeah.
It's
not the best Xermanico, but I'll still take all Xermanico.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's definitely
popping up for 6 pages.
It's definitely better than the really inconsistent issues before this, even if it's not up to his like highest standard, which is nice. So we find out that this dark side that we're seeing is actually a combination of every dark side that's ever existed.
Yeah, so he's been folded in, which makes sense because I remember Morrison talking about how Darkseid is a what did they use on WandaVision? Shoot. Well, there's only one of them. So I always hear that all the dark sides are just Darkseid and Highfather and Orion. Like they weren't reborn with each crisis. And this suggests that this Darkseid has been folded all together, which I don't know if you remember the last Darkseid that we had from Justice League Odyssey, but he was reborn from the baby Darkseid from, was it Darkseid War?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was that one brought up through, shenanigans.
Which now means we don't have to remember that too well because now it's been reset again and we're on this
right, because
version.
But this will give Williamson credit is that he is telling a meta story through comic book storytelling in a way like Jeff Johns kind of did, but this is a little bit so like with Johns in Infinite Crisis, all the issues and continuity came from Superboy Prime punching the walls of reality, right? From their prison. And that's what caused all the little, inconsistencies through, from in the post-crisis Earth. So here, Williamson's kind of doing that, it all happened, and you just have to keep reading to find out what exactly each of them are. And I love that a lot because it really plays with comic books in that form where just because it's the version right now doesn't mean that's the version it's going to be.
I think what I like about this little touch is that later on Darkseid talks about wanting to control the Omniverse, and I kind of like the idea that he's an Omni-Darkseid in a way because he's all the versions combined. So I think that's an interesting touch. Basically, Obsidian rushes in to Roy, who's been overtaken with the Omega Lantern power, and basically Obsidian's like, no, I can lead him through this darkness. It's kind of why I exist. It's my.
It's kind of my thing.
It's his speciality. So he does. He kind of snaps Roy out of it. And Flashpoint Batman Thomas Wayne shows up. Actually has kind of a heartfelt little moment, which did surprise me a little bit. He fights Machine Head because Machine Head, of course, has got a beef with Flashpoint's entire existence. And
that's with Williamson, real quick. With him, we found out in the last issue of he blames Flashpoint for all the bad stuff happening on his Earth because of the reverberations and whatnot. So again, that's that meta kind of storytelling here that, when Flashpoint happened, it caused problems at, let's say, the New 52, right? So from our perspective reading, we kind of see Machine Head and how that affected that Earth. But so now he wants to take it out. Like, he can't take it out on Flashpoint Earth, so he's going to take it on the lone survivor, Thomas Wayne.
But he does also add on that he's going to destroy Earth Zero after he's killed Thomas Wayne. And then Thomas just lists names. He says Dick, Jason, Tim, Stephanie, Cass, Duke. And at first I was a little bit, why is he not saying Barbara? But when I got to the next panel, and he actually sort of defined who this, because the last name he says, of course, is Damien. He saves Damien for last. And when Machine Head asks him, what are you saying, old man? He's like, these are the names of my son's children, and I failed them before. And I'm like, damn, I was not expecting to get an emotional hit from Thomas Wayne, from Flashpoint Batman at the end of this story. But lo and behold, I was kind of rooting for him after that line. So, but President Superman swoops in, kind of ends the fight, and it becomes this big moment where President Superman has to get to Barry. Right, Barry's in this treadmill. He's getting closer and closer to breaking through the barrier, which will give Darkseid access to the Omniverse and break down all the everything. And what I kind of dug, I really like the sequence in here actually. So there's this page where it's like a strip in the middle of panels, and there's like vertical panels on either side.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically the giant swoosh beam of like President Superman flying down into where the cosmic treadmill is, or hamster wheel or whatever this damn thing is.
Yeah.
And then you have the beam of the sort of the dome around it cracking and all the rest of it. And then the next page is just this 2-page like boom white out, rumble.
Rackathum.
Yeah, at the bottom, but it's mostly just white. And I do like that you're not entirely sure if it's successful yet. Like, you don't really know exactly what's just happened. Has Barry broken the barrier, or has President Superman destroyed everything and grabbed them, and it's made this reaction? Turns out to be the latter, of course. So we have kind of an ending here, but I don't know if you were here for the last issue, but we said that this was. It didn't feel this was finishing a story. This arc. This felt like it was the prologue to something else. Yeah. And everything that comes here towards the end is, I mean, Roy's alive without the ring. He's just back now, so that's good. So that's neat. Darkseid's still there. Psycho Pirate vanishes away because he's no longer useful.
He's needed for another event, which
that's right. Yeah.
Psycho Pirate shows up at Crises, so.
Yep. So that's super interesting. And when Machine Head tries to convince Darkseid that he can still help fix this, Darkseid just whips out the Omega Beams and kills him.
Omega beamed. Yeah. I always love the herky jerkiness of the Omega. It's not a straight line ever, and I love that aspect. And it looks like Xermanico had some fun. It almost looks like a heartbeat to me, like a heartbeat form.
It always has that kind of rigid effect to it. You always do that, but yeah, you're right. It's got kind of a heart rate monitor kind of look to it. Mm-hmm. So the metaphorical V trigger from Omega was delivered. So really good. And then even the panel at the top of the page after that, which is just like him looking down at us, the reader, with the beams coming down either side, is really neat. But what's interesting here is he does not kill all of the heroes, right? And that's something that they themselves question when they get back. And everyone seems to have been sent back to where they should be. Harbinger back at the the Justice Incarnate's headquarters, that seems to be functioning again. And it says that some of this will be explored in that miniseries we're getting, Justice League Incarnate, which starts in November. Obviously, we're going to be reading that because I'm really curious to see where all this shit's going. But there's a lot of epilogue stuff here. You have Roy drinking a beer, which is apparently brewed from multiple Earths. Yeah. Sure.
Multi brewery, which cracks me up because, of course, if you know anything about craft beer, they have the silliest names. So, of course, in a universe that knows the multiverse exists, someone's going to cash in on that.
Oh, for sure. In fact, probably the one reference we might ever get in like proper like mainline continuity to Checkmate existing is when Roy asked Chase where did Bones end up, and she's like, who knows where he ended up, and there's just a panel of him with all the other characters from Checkmate, and I'm like, oh well, I guess that kind of tied it in a little bit.
Yeah, and this also puts in that Checkmate is happening after all of this.
It does, yeah.
So instead of before, which I guess is nice.
Yeah. So the JSA are trying to monitor what Darkseid and what Psycho Pirate was doing, try to figure things out. Chase is looking in. I really like this scene though, because obviously this is all just clearing up loose ends, this first part, but then it gets to the really interesting part of the scene, which is Roy asks how Bones convinced her to be involved in all this. And we find out that scene from the first issue, or from the Zero issue, whatever one it was, where Bones saw the cafe, he showed her photos of different Chases in different worlds, right? And we see one's like a soldier, one's dead, one's got a family, husband and kids, one's got a straitjacket on. and it freaked her out. She says it freaked her out because what if there's a better version of me out there? Which version is the bad version? Is Extract the bad version? What is it? But she ultimately decided that, well, what if I'm the best version, and I just need to put the effort in to be the best version, but I could be the best version. So it's this kind of optimistic thing. It does tease at the end of this scene that where you're probably going to see Roy next is in the Teen Titans book, which is a shame because we're not going to see it.
Because we won't. Yeah, we won't.
But it does make sense. It makes sense that he goes there first, at least for a brief visit.
Well, we also know his daughter's active in Gotham, so maybe.
Catwoman makes the most sense for him to eventually end up.
Right.
I think that's fair. So Extract though is still around. We go to Earth Omega, which they don't know where Earth Omega is. Earth Omega's vanished from sight.
Well, it's that, and they don't really know what Earth Omega is. It's like almost a world in between worlds. Because they say that, I think it's President Superman, when he's talking about where it's at, like, where are they? So, yeah.
Yeah, so we see on Earth Omega, Extract is pledging allegiance to Darkseid. Darkseid's usual cronies are there,
So you got Steppenwolf, Desaad, Calabac. I always forget his daughter's name.
Grill,
and then Granny Goodness. So they're almost looking like a dark quintessence, if you ask me.
And we get hints of some other villains. Upside Down Man's there. Eclipse was there. Earth Omega was never a world. As a price of arresting an enemy dormant since the first crisis. So it gives you this sense that he's actually kind of building to something else, to some other villain. And now it wakes. And when you get to the next page, he just calls it the Great Darkness, and we get a 2-page spread which is mostly just black, with just a little bit in the corner of where they're standing, but it's mostly just darkness. And he specifically mentions that this is something that was, it's not been around since the first crisis. So, a lot of speculation there, and obviously there's the epilogue to get to. But even just this on its own felt like a big tease to me. It felt like, okay, this feels like we're doing a crisis soon. And then this epilogue kind of adds on to that it's maybe going to be a crisis with a twist, with a gimmick, as it were. So Barry never returned to where he was supposed to go. Barry was still in the speed. He's not in the Speed Force, is he?
No, he's in whatever whatever that hamster wheel brought him to. Well, it's not the Speed Force.
Well, when he gets out, yeah. But I'm just mean when he's still running in the energy, right? I'm like, is that technically the Speed Force? Is that whatever? I don't know. Anyway, but he lands somewhere, right? He lands somewhere, and he's all kind of confuddled, and he hears a voice, and this person tells him, and it's Pariah. We find out in the next page, but this person, Pariah, tells him that this is Multiverse 2.
Which, I mean,
comics are so wacky sometimes, you know that? Just pointing that out. But yeah, this was destroyed in the first crisis. So again, we're referencing that first crisis. We're going back to that again. A lot of coming full circle to the original crisis here. He talks about that Antimatter. He talks about Alexander Luthor, so it ties in Infinite Crisis. Talks about Darkseid wanting to control it, which ties in kind of this, but I think more so Final Crisis. I think is the main reference that's trying to make. It says, "My name is Pariah, and it's time that we moved on. Stop apologizing for the past and let the real multiverse truly live." And he touches Barry, who sort of fades to white as if he's sort of been dismantled. But then, at the panel at the bottom, he's reformed in classic comic book art. And the final page of this comic book is Barry, who is now on Earth Flash 1. And it's a Silver Age looking piece of art where Barry's at a table. You got a Kid Flash, Wally, Jay's there.
Tornado Twins.
The Tornado Twins. It's this sort of old school Flash family image of them having dinner, and then there's the panel at the bottom that says, of Pariah saying, "We'll all be happy no matter what. To be continued in 2022." So this, to go with this meta idea, this looks like Pariah is, at least for the duration of this big event that we're going to get next year, apparently,
Mhm.
is maybe going to put various heroes into like sort of like bottled versions of their past, of like different eras that they existed in or something like that.
Yeah, it's almost like it's giving them their heart's desire, right? Because Barry's surrounded by family.
Yeah.
So, and it puts him there. But that page mimics his death from Crisis, from the first Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, there's some form of undoing and redoing, which means, like, so what's our Barry up to right now in the Justice League? Like, you know? Because as we know through, Bones went to go work with Checkmate, which means now there's a Barry running around with the Justice League that's not this Barry. At least we don't think it's this Barry. So,
Well, I mean, it does say Earth Flash 1. Is it possible that when all that went down, that Barry's, I don't want to say split necessarily, but, we had a divergence in the multiverse where two paths, one where he just goes back and he's still Barry Allen in the Justice League, like normal days. But then the other side of it, there's a Barry now that went to this Earth Flash 1. And it makes me wonder, is there an Earth Flash 2? And is Earth Flash 2 like Wally's perfect scenario?
right.
Where that's...
And if you get to Earth Flash 3, is that Bart's?
Yeah, and so on and so on. And do we get like other Earths for other characters? I mean, the title definitely implies that.
Oh, damn it. He also has Wallace sitting on his lap.
Oh, so he does.
So it is his family. So yeah, man, it's wild. So when we got to the Pariah reveal, I really thought, just based off of the silhouette without reading, I thought, oh, we're doing Monitors again, because just the way that he's dressed, and it ended up being Pariah, which ties up more to Crisis on Infinite Earths. So crazy, but no, this was a solid. This does feel like a prologue and not its own series. Because I wouldn't say like this was a fulfilling read, because it just kind of ends. Like, I still had fun reading it, but it does wrap up a little bit quick. Like, we talked about the Xermanico's art feeling a little rushed, so does kind of the story a little. So
it left me excited for this though, whatever this is.
100%. Yeah, Williamson's got that down though, because I feel like he's done this to us before, where he teases whatever's coming next, and we're excited for it. That page with all the villains, I still can't figure out who the top one is. Right? If it's a 9-panel grid, it's in the 2 spot. It's like sitting in the chair.
Oh, the ones around Darkseid when he's just making his speech.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know who that is. And then you got Necron on the bottom, Upside Down Man, and Eclipso.
Could that be Trigon?
Maybe. Although if it's Trigon, I mean, Trigon cuts a different figure usually. So unless this is a new...
He's in silhouette, so we get like a big beast.
Yeah.
There's a horn. I'd have to go check what Trigon's horns look like. But, yeah.
I mean, Trigon would make a lot of sense for the threads. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is Trigon. It's a different version, but his horns do spike up like antlers like that.
Okay. Well, that's cool.
But he's not as beastly in that image, you know what I mean? Like, it's almost like a diminutive Trigon.
I think the meta aspect of Pariah being this character who wants to restore everything from before Crisis, because I think because of our age range, right, in our generation, we often wanted to talk about going back to post-Crisis, but there are an older generation who miss pre-Crisis, and
right,
having a story that kind of tackles that idea a little bit, if not does something permanent with it. Now, admittedly, I don't feel like we need to fix anything now. I feel like ever since
I really feel since Snyder did the Omniverse,
ever since Death Metal, basically, it feels like everything kind of got fixed anyway, and enough to the point where it doesn't feel like we have to correct the continuity anymore. So I'm not sure, like, I'm not like excited for this story because I feel like things need to be fixed. I'm just excited because, okay, we're doing another Crisis level thing, and Pariah possibly being the villain, or at least being something that, like, maybe in like a sort of Barry Allen Flashpoint role ends up causing a big problem without meaning to,
Right.
because he thinks, it's well intentioned because he thinks he's making everyone happy, but not really. Like, what if Darkseid's whole plan to unleash this, this great darkness, what if that starts to be successful because too many of the Justice League have been put in their own happy little worlds where they're, and to be honest,
maybe
Matt,
that's what's causing the great darkness, though, right? It's the lack of light because they're not together, because they're all off on their own.
Possible, but I mean, at that point, though, is Pariah working for Darkseid? I don't think, it doesn't feel like he is. It feels separate.
No, but what if not that he's working for him, but just Pariah doing this is what is causing the great darkness, because it's an absence.
I actually just wonder if Flash, Barry, that is on Justice League, is just kind of a mistake that we're just going to have to accept, because the main Flash book, like, that's the Wally book, so in theory, Barry could technically just be gone for, however many months this is till this starts. So I'm sure there'll be some inconsistencies that don't quite line up with the Justice League book, but
for sure.
Whatever. Who knows? Maybe they'll pull something wacky where we'll find out that Barry in Justice League is an imposter or something. come the start of this crisis on Perfect Earths, or whatever they're going to call the damn thing.
I almost said Future Imperfect and then realized that's a Hulk story. Dummy.
I can see it be called something like that, like Crisis on Ideal Earths or something like that. Like, I could see them playing with the name, because I don't know. We'll see what they end up calling it, but it does feel like it's a crisis. I mean, there's too many references to Crisis. There's too many multiverse and omniverse related things, and then you bring in Pariah, like, and even Darkseid referencing the original Crisis, which I have to assume, especially given the way that Pariah starts talking about him watching the worlds of the second multiverse dying, I have to assume that maybe those link up, and it's talking about the great, like, basically the nothing that destroyed all of those Earths.
Well, that's what I'm wondering with the Great Darkness saga. It's been a while, but I mean, that's what ultimately is Darkseid's tied to, because of the Legion story. So, but I'm trying to find out here that when eventually Darkseid is revealed, it's through the Great Darkness. So it doesn't exactly say what it is.
Maybe Williamson's going to add some new things to this lore.
Maybe
come event time. As far as the issue itself goes, it's a fun enough read. I particularly and there's a couple of key moments that I think are really stand out. Like, I think Thomas Wayne saying that he's going to protect his son's family. I thought was a good one. Good moment. I think Chase giving her reason for sort of having the will to go on. Turnroy's conversation I thought was very enjoyable, and then all the teases at the end are very tantalizing for what's coming next. The only thing that I'd say is maybe the weakest part is probably the first little chunk, which is just the big fight. Well, the big fight's just kind of whatever.
Yeah, that's where it feels kind of rushed in that story, that we spend a lot of time with that fight and then with the epilogue, because Williamson's going to tease what's going on. So it doesn't end up feeling like its own story, just like a jumping off point for what he has planned for 2022.
So there you go. What are you rating Infinite Crisis issue 6?
It was 7.5.
I'll go 8. I think those standout moments in my excitement for whatever this is going to be raises it a little bit. So yeah, that's where I'll stand. Batman 112, James Tynion the 4th, and Jorge Jiminez on the art. The first proper issue of Fear State. The Alpha issue is kind of really the first one, but whatever. So this has there's almost like a, I don't know, it's not exactly like RoboCop, but all the advertising and sort of public relations material that we see from Saint Industries throughout this issue was giving me that kind of satirical, like, swallow the information we're selling you, take the cover story, we're here for your protection, buy that for $1.
And it's counter, exactly. and it's counter to what's actually going on, where it's a complete mess and not at all what Saint envisioned, because he made a deal with a psychopath.
Mm-hmm.
In Scarecrow. So I do love that the counter narratives at play there.
And his number one guy is also acting like a psycho because he's dosed up
Right.
on fear toxins. So the whole thing's falling apart from Saint's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Some gorgeous art here early on, though. The first panel of Batman, that full page of him after he's just broken out the chair that he was tied to from Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. Then even just the following page of him running in the not a real field, but in his head he's running from a field of a giant Scarecrow.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very pretty stuff. So yeah, and all this is playing out as we're getting the news reports, and we're getting the not even the news reports. We're getting Simon Saint's speech that he has in this kind of PR video, talking about how he grew up in the city, how the wealthiest couple were gunned down, and then Batman came, and at first that seemed like a great idea, but then he brought all these crazy people out of the woodwork, and now they've just made the city this joke, and he introduces Peacekeeper 1, and it's all this happy stuff, right? This happy PR stuff. Batman's like crawling to the Batmobile, injects himself with some shit to try and counteract everything.
Yeah, because he realizes that Crane's gone beyond fear toxin. This is something else that he's weaponized, which we know is the Mad Hatter tech.
Yeah, he's working with the Mad Hatter tech.
He'd asked for it in the Alpha issue for Saint. So, Batman's putting it together, and that he even tells Barbara, "I can't even trust my own mind right now, because I don't know. I don't even know if I'm talking to you."
Yeah, I love the panel actually. When he gets in the car, there's a panel sort of POV shot looking out the windshield, and like Scarecrow's standing in the rain, and he may not actually be there. Like this might just be in Batman's head, but it just looks gorgeous. And then he's like stands on top of the car and starts scratching at the car with these needles.
It's very Freddy Krueger.
Yeah,
right? And we know that it's in Bruce's head because the windshield's still intact.
Yeah.
When you turn the page, but yeah, when it's there, you have no idea. And I know it's more visceral, but like needle fingers Scarecrow, terrifying. Guy in a bag head, a little bit scary, but not that scary. This one, terrifying. So good on Tynion for the wardrobe change.
Yeah, so Batman's on his way to see Oracle. Saint's doing like a not in person, he's doing like a hologram interview with a chat show host. Yeah. Which he ends up vomiting at the end of it and like sort of coming out of it, and he's basically freaking out because everything's falling apart, and he's like having to pretend on camera that everything's hunky dory and all's going to plan, but in reality like everything's falling apart. And we cut to what's his face?
Peacekeeper 1?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember his Mahoney. Yeah. I was trying to remember his actual name. He's like stumbling around in his armor suit, being confused, and he sees people in the street who are hurt and in trouble, and he sees like almost like monstrous Joker people, like just like villains that he has to take care of.
Well, and they're like, you remember when he turns around and sees Bane with the broken jaw? They're very reminiscent of that too.
Yeah, the jaws are all
Joker mixed.
Yeah, they're all hanging. Yeah, no, you're right.
But yeah.
But to show how much Batman's out of it is that he's on the rooftop near the clock tower, and Cass actually sneaks up behind him, thinking that he's an intruder, and the other girls come out and they're like, "Well, you look like shit." Pretty much.
This was probably my favorite moment from the issue, just to see them, all of the Batgirls, as one, kind of telling Bruce like, "Hey, man, you need to maybe sit this one out right now." Like it's a nice moment.
Yeah, no, because he points out like under normal circumstances, no one should be able to sneak up on him like that, but Cass did, so he knows he's not 100%. And he gets filled in and everything else that there's a fake Oracle broadcasting just to stir up trouble. And the fake Oracle, it is just about causing fear, because it's not just telling them about Scarecrow and Batman being dead, but it's also notably saying, "Oh, Peacekeeper 1's, this is not a good thing. This is psychotic."
Which I'm trying to get a pin on who the anti-Oracle is, though. Like, is it someone on the outside? Is it Scarecrow?
It definitely sounds like it's at Scarecrow's behest because everything seems to be pushing the narrative of like creating more fear. In fact, one of my favorite things that comes up here in a couple of pages, they get filled in where the Insanity Collective are hiding out.
Yeah.
But as well, he's talking to Babs in the clock tower. There's a few panels of like just random civilians boarding up their windows because it's there to show you that the city is in this fear state where they're all terrified and shit's going down, and they're all kind of like, you know, like actually it's like Night of the Living Dead. They're preparing for possible invasions and stuff. Yeah. And I love that after that page, there's a full page spread of Scarecrow and a gargoyle in the rain, and he's like, okay, because it feels like his city now, right? This is how Batman usually stands in a Batman comic.
It is, and he's on a bat gargoyle too. Let's not get lost on that.
Yeah, but he's taking over. He's taking Batman's spot. He's controlling fear. So the end of the issue is actually that Simon is putting into, basically he's creating his next Peacekeeper, but it's not Peacekeeper 2, which you might think it is. He's basically, despite all of his PR at the start of this issue, and he was doing the interview, he kept saying, oh no, my Peacekeepers are accountable, unlike these vigilantes. But the whole time, he had the idea that he needs one that's off the books, one that's not accountable. So we get the introduction at the end here of Peacekeeper X, who is
who's his assistant, who I don't know the name, Ricardo. It's him, man bun, in a full on his own black suit, which, you know, of course we should have seen. I mean, he's basically Ed 209, right? Like if you're gonna bring up RoboCop, right? This is the new.
I appreciate that his man bun's still sticking out of his helmet.
Yes.
I enjoy that detail.
Peacekeeper X.
So he's sending out a second enhanced mech-suited super soldier into Gotham to take care of his first super soldier, who is freaking out on psychotic drugs.
Right.
So that's going to help. That's going to cure the problem immediately, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Also, you kind of skimmed over Ivy, who we only get her a little bit, but it wouldn't be me if I don't bring her up. They bring up that she's under the city and has basically the bedrock of Gotham wrapped up in plant material, and that if she wanted to, she could bring the whole city down on her whim. And I was just like, damn, Tynion, you really souped her up, because I've never heard anything like that. And also, do you think that that's kind of a reference to No Man's Land? Like, because she has all of that, she could cause something of that magnitude just on her own?
I don't know if it's a reference. I mean, if she did...
an illusion, I guess you could say.
If she went through with it, yeah, it would create a No Man's Land style scenario, but I don't know if that's...
Which I don't think that she's... I think this whole game with Catwoman and Harley, we're going to get the Ivies.
Well, yeah, I mean... I think I said this last time we talked about this, but it is kind of neat how each half of Ivy is with a different siren. And one half's with Harley, half's with Catwoman. And when they finally realise that and put two and two together, then we'll get Ivy back in her true form.
Yeah, so. And Harley saying that when she's done with this, she wants her own Robin costume. That got a giggle out of me.
Why not? Just slap a... Just swap the... I mean, red and black's already kind of a Robin colour scheme anyway. Just slap a green R on the chest and just call it a day.
Green H, you know.
On H, sorry.
Yeah.
But, no, I enjoyed this issue quite a bit. I think it kept up that kind of vibe and the feeling that the entire city is in a dire space and everything's going down. It was still very much an issue one of an arc in that it wasn't... Like, I think... Because it's been building this for so long, it didn't have to establish a lot of things. It just had to sell you that we're at a tipping point with them and that everything is dire and all of this stuff's kicking off. But in reality, like if I was going to recommend to someone read Fear State, I would say read from End of Joker War. Read all the way from there to now, because that's the whole... That's actually all of Fear State is the end until the end of this arc. But you know,
basically from A-Day onward. Right, when they brought up A-Day, which I forget, is that in the DC comic special?
It Was it not Infinite Frontier Zero? Maybe.
Maybe.
It was something like that. It was. Yeah, it was in one of the one shots.
It was outside of the typical Gotham books, but you'd almost say start there because that's kind of where the Mahoney stuff starts, and then it goes.
Yeah,
goes onward.
I feel like when you recommend this in the future, you're probably going to be like recommending like the oversized omnibus or hardcover that has the whole thing, rather than just this one trade. But
yeah, for sure.
But that's actually what makes it more satisfying, though, when all this is kicking off. But you wouldn't recommend just this arc on its own starting here. It wouldn't work, or even the Alpha issue wouldn't work as a starting point. I don't think. So, but that's okay. That's not a complaint. I'm actually glad that it's doing that, but it is worth mentioning. So, good stuff. Art's gorgeous throughout. I mentioned multiple pages and panels.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Spoiled. Anytime I see Jiminez as Barbara, I feel spoiled. So.
What are you rating them at?
8.5.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. 8.5 for me as well. So, cool. That's Batman. 112. Yes. 112. Green Lantern Annual 2021 issue 1. So this is first of the Green Lantern books because this was supposed to come out last week, so logic just dictates that it should be first.
AKA the good one.
I disagree with that.
Oh man, okay.
Not that I think this was bad, but I would say I preferred issue 6.
I preferred this to Green Lantern, and we'll get there when we talk about Green Lantern.
Yeah.
But
well,
this is just an overview. This is my kind of Green Lantern book, even though it doesn't really feature a Green Lantern. It's more about Jess as a Sinestro Corps or a Yellow, whatever we're calling them now.
Does it matter? The colors are relevant.
Yeah, but like this is the kind of stuff that I look forward to in a Green Lantern book that I am not getting in the Thorne book. So this scratched that itch, and I got to see Jess again. So that's always a benefit.
No, I'm never mad at seeing Jess. I did kind of like, so, Jess comes to New Beauregard after she just got the ring, and you know what? I'm going to say good job on remembering the story that set up her getting that ring, but I'm also going to critique it slightly in that I remember enjoying that small story and that special well enough, but not enough that I remembered the ending.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm gonna be real.
Because even when someone told me that the Yellow Lantern from that other issue was Jess, and then I was like, oh, they're going to explain a lot of it in this annual that's coming up. I didn't remember that we had a short story that ended with her getting a yellow ring. I did not remember that at all.
I'm gonna be honest. I completely forgot about that story, and I know I read it because it was in. You said it was in the 80th, right?
I don't know if it was that. It was in something like that. Yeah.
Ah, shoot. Okay.
It was a short story, but it was like a Die Hard thing where Jess was crawling around with no powers, and there was like yellow lanterns.
Yeah. I remember this now.
Yeah. So she references it a few times here, which is nice. Now I liked their back and forth. I liked Sinestro is effectively try to recruit her a little bit, sort of test her, see what she's like. Try to explain the power of fear and how it can be used, and how it's not just about scaring people, and there's more to it than that, and so on and so on.
And I like that he compares it to control versus empathy, because everybody can feel fear, right? Not everybody knows willpower, and as she would know, right? Because that's been her life, and she had to overcome the fear for the control. But here is like, well, you're fit for this because you can share that empathy of fear, and it doesn't have to be a force for bad. And I really like that. So the writer of this is Ryan Cady.
Yeah, Ryan Cady and Tom Derrenick on art, just to mention that.
And Sammy Basri did the majority of the art. Derrenick did pages 24 through 36, but at a certain point, it all kind of they complement each other very well. Like you don't get that.
I think this idea of like fear isn't necessarily an evil thing. Of course, it makes sense. Like that should always be a possibility. I mean, this is a world.
Batman.
It's a world with Batman in it. Like we have to accept the possibility that fear is a useful tool.
And the Sinestro Corps War, right? Batman got a yellow ring, and he overfought it, right? And it, kept it bottled up, and he ended up not going to New Beauregard or wherever they were going. Quard. They were going to Quard. That's where his base was. Anyways, Yeah, I like that a lot, and I like that for Jess too, because it really sets her apart from the other Lanterns, which that's why we've always liked her. She's always been since we've had her in since Rebirth. She has kind of been the Lantern that stands out above everyone else. And I say this as a Guy Gardner fan. I, there's not too many big Guy Gardner moments in the last couple years, right?
Last 20.
Yeah, it's like whatever. He was great in Green Lantern Corps during that was not 20 years ago. I was just doing the math. Wait. He's saying that era, the Johns era, it's not 20 years old yet. So anyways, but no, yeah, and like
so it's over a decade though. Just
yes, definitely over a decade.
Throwing that out there. Yeah, so I think this issue, I think would have been better if it hadn't been an annual sized issue. I think the length actually hurts it, because I think this could have been a perfect 20-page book, and it would have worked. Ultimately it boils down to Jess talks to Sinestro. He tries to recruit her. She says, no, I just want to go home. And he's like, well, there's no ships available, so you can take the yellow ring to go home. And then, from there, it's up to you. And she's on her way home. She almost gets back to Earth, but there's a ship that's in distress, and she tries to intervene to help, of course. She's trying to save people on the ship, and she's recognizing the fear of the pilot and all that stuff.
Yep.
I'll get into the details in a minute, but ultimately Hal Jordan shows up, who's one of the two people that we know of who has a working Green Lantern ring, because this is different from everyone else's. And
him and Joe.
He intervenes. I'll be honest, he's kind of a dick. Like, the way he immediately just reacts to Jessica is kind of bullshit.
He should know, out of anybody, this man's worn just about every color of ring. And he should know that that's not necessarily of plus during Venditti's run, they worked with the yellows. So there's not like a fight on sight corollary anymore.
He does this thing where when she mentions that she dropped off like the other Sinestro lanterns back at New Karagar, he's like, oh, you stopped off there for a job interview. I'm like, why are you being a dick?
Also, when he got drafted into the Green Lantern Corps, he should know. Sometimes the rings just takes you to the home base. Like, yeah, this is my main problem with this issue, is the voice for Hal is completely off. Especially a Hal that's been seasoned as a leader since at least Rebirth, right? We're gonna only take it back that far. None of that ring true.
Yeah, Hal's just an asshole here. There is a neat little twist where, the captain of this ship that Jess starts talking to, she senses that he's very afraid, and it might even be dangerous for him to keep making decisions, because it'll basically, all the mercenaries on the ship are getting anxious, and if the leadership's not there to kind of rein them in, they might do something stupid, and it'll just create a bigger disaster. So she kind of relieves him of his duty, and the second in command takes over. But then the sort of little twist is that part of the reason why he was scared is that the second command was actually working with mercenaries to take over the ship, and there was kind of a double cross thing happening in the first place. But all of this is a bit more complex and lasts a bit longer than it needs to be, because there's a whole confrontation with Jess in the ship, and then Hal shows up. They have an extended conversation, and then it goes back to dealing with the ship again. It's all just a little bit too drawn out, and I really feel like this being boiled down to a more streamlined 20 pages would have helped it a lot. And and as we said, Hal's voice is just too much of an asshole. And I know he can be a dick at times. I'm not saying it's completely out of character.
No, but and I get it, but someone that he knows that shared a sector with him, he should know that if she's showing up in a yellow lantern suit, and that none of the other greens are working because the power battery's dead, he shouldn't be like, shoot first, ask questions later.
Yeah, maybe her having a yellow ring right now is a good thing, given that there's no green rings going about.
Exactly.
Maybe she can help go and save all the other Green Lanterns. Jess tells Hal to stay at Earth and protect Earth. So, Jess is obviously going to be a factor in the main book going forward. I like that she is going to be a main factor.
Yep.
But yeah, so she goes back, accepts being a Yellow Lantern. She's going to be working with Alyssa Drack, and So they've got kind of we may even get some awkward buddy cop style stories with them.
Yeah.
But she does say that she's not going to say the oath. She's still charging her ring, but she's not saying the Sinestro core oath, which is an interesting thing.
I do like.
Yeah, I'm all right with that. Yeah, I mean this is okay. This is okay, but it was over long. Hal's voice was a bit iffy. I felt the length and thought,
sure.
So. But,
I enjoyed it nonetheless, though. Like, it wasn't a read that, when I started it, we got to a little bit of a late start because I had to finish this. Because I could have just been like, oh, I'm not going to finish it. But I was enjoying it so much that I. But no, I liked it. I liked the Just story. I liked it. The whole Sinestro. I love when he's not a mustache twirling villain. So I like that when he actually has his principles. And that's him here. Point out that he senses the greatness in Jess, and that whatever this reformed Sinestro Corps is going to be, that she's almost like the beacon of it, because she even says, he tells the story that fear, or not the story, gives her kind of a pep talk of let fear be the beacon, and that's where the whole one candle at a time at the end comes from, and I like that. It fits the version of Sinestro that I like, that we kind of backtracked on when he started running around with Lex with in Justice League, where he got the ultraviolet ring and whatnot, but so this kind of principled anti-hero Sinestro, I'm happy to see again.
Yeah, and I don't suspect this is not a permanent change. She'll be a Green Lantern again at some point, but
yeah,
I do like her realizing, I can do some good with this, especially in this time of crisis, especially right now where the Lanterns that do exist who don't have rings right now need all the help they can get. So her being able to show up and actually have some power is probably a really good thing. Yeah. Yeah. So, it was okay. It was okay. What are you rating them at?
7.5.
Yeah, I'll probably go like a 6.
Okay.
Yeah, let's say. No, it wasn't bad, but I just I felt it. I felt the annualness of it, even though I love Jess and I love, getting more stories about her. But hey, Green Lantern issue 6, Geoffrey Thorne writing with Tom Raney and Marco Santucci on the art. Oh, and this is like all the Green Lantern issues have been, this is 2 halves. And the first one is actually the other side of the Kelly story from last time, where we got Kelly on Yukorigar on her own. This time we get the Joe and to some extent Simon as well, who's we see like him getting into his little pod and going down to the planet. But we get Joe's decision making here, and more importantly, Joe kind of having a one-on-one with Sinestro. So a lot of Sinestro one-on-one talk this week in the comics. And obviously this ship has been run by mostly Thanagarians. This is a United Planet ship. So now, you already said in advance that you weren't so hot on this. I enjoyed this issue quite a bit. In particular, this first half I really liked. Yeah.
The back half is my bigger problem. I like all the Joe stuff because we're in a crisis because the power battery's done. I just like, for the longest time now I've talked about, I want, kind of for Green Lantern to get away kind of from the space opera elements. And Thorne's done that. But like, this is, again, it doesn't feel like a Green Lantern book at this point. It feels like it's its own type of sci-fi kind of book, and there's not a lot of Green Lantern-ness to it that I look for. Whereas in the annual, where we had Jess doing the ring slinging, even with the yellow, doing almost superhero-y stuff, going around the universe, that wasn't really the space opera. Like, sure, the Yellow Lantern stuff's there, but it was, going around and helping people. And here it's just been really set on, we're going to tell a Green Lantern story that's not a Green Lantern story, which is cool. It's just not for me. And it's the John Stewart story is kind of running my patience, at this point. Whereas I'll take more of the Joe story and Kelly, and I like all this. I like them trying to put the pieces together. But yeah, I'm just not enjoying what Thorne's putting out.
I don't think I understand half of what you just said, to be honest. um,
Okay.
I don't really understand why this is not a Green Lantern story, or
So when you blow up the power battery, right, and all the lanterns get stranded and stuff, right? So we did have John on that planet going. It's just it's not very Green Lantern-y, like, which I understand him wanting to tell a different kind of story, but it's more just sci-fi. Whereas, like, I like the superhero elements. I don't feel there's a lot of superhero elements right now to it, and I kind of want that space copy. So I liked Green Lanterns so much is we got to see them, Simon and Jess do that. And here it has not been for the at least since issue 2. I was really high on issue 1, and it's been a slow decline. That with each issue I enjoy it less, especially the John Stewart story.
Yeah, I don't think I could disagree more with this. I mean, not so much that I think this is perfect, but I don't think I could disagree more with this sentiment, just because to me this is the most interesting thing they've done with Green Lanterns since that book ended, which is
and it can be interesting, but doesn't mean I'm going to enjoy it. Like, it's different, and
but to me, like, you're saying it's not a Green Lantern story, but it is to me, because the whole point of this is what happens to the Green Lanterns when all the rings are taken away. That's a crisis they have to deal with, and to me, that is something that's actually fascinating to explore and tell a story of their determination and what makes them heroes even without the power rings. That's interesting stuff, and it's also given the spotlight to Joe and Kelly. Like, this is all great stuff to me. Particularly this half of the story.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. I just I want to see the ring slinging stuff, and it's like if you put in, let's say,
and define ring slinging. You keep saying ring slinging. Define ring slinging.
So that's when they're doing the superhero stuff, right? That's when they're going around with the rings, and they're doing the space cop. I guess I should say space cop stuff, because that's what I feel has been missing for a while. Because we've gotten a lot of the Johns, like even under Venditti, he fell into this with the different Lantern factions and the coexistence and Hal trying to manage all that stuff. So again, I give Thorne credit for doing something completely different, right? But it's not what I like. This is almost like similar to what Morrison did with Green Lantern, where it's like, okay, I respect that you want to do something of your own. I'm just not, it's not gelling with me.
I don't think that
it's not to the quality. It's just a story that I'm not like.
I don't think this is like, because Green Lanterns was notably back to them just being superheroes, and that was something that was missing for a long time before that. And everything that I've heard about Venditti's run says that it was more just Green Lantern multiple core space opera stuff. And this is still space opera stuff, obviously, but it's obviously not doing the multiple. I mean, yeah, the yellow lanterns are there; they exist, but that's not what it's focusing on. That's not the key element.
No.
So, I guess what I'm saying is I don't get the complaint specifically about this story when all of Venditti's stuff and most of Jeff Johns' stuff falls under not doing the traditional superhero Green Lantern stuff anyway.
Right. So, like, again, I wanted it to get away from that, and this, again, Thorne has gotten away from that. It's doing its own, I guess you could say, space opera thing. I don't define this as space opera. This is, to me, more like, it's more sci-fi, like more hard sci-fi than what I'm used to in Green Lantern. Like with John having to, interpret all the different aliens, and you have the whole slavers thing and all of this, like, but like I get what you're saying about them having to come up without their rings and stuff, but to me that's not why I get excited to read Green Lantern. I guess like I feel like he's handicapped them and tied a hand behind their back, and now we're going like, hey, look at them not be Green Lanterns. I was like, okay, cool.
Like, I don't know, Matt. I feel like you're trying to handicap the writers by saying this is what a Green Lantern story has to be, or this is how a Green Lantern story should function.
It doesn't feel like a Green Lantern story. 100% it doesn't. The Joe stuff kind of does. But the stuff with John, I don't care about. I want to skip it. And then you throw Kilowog in there, and I get excited, and I'm just like, oh, okay, we're doing more sci-fi. We got to go, rescue them, and you throw in these the golden angel looking things. I'm just like, all right, I'm kind of out on this.
Yeah,
Like, the story's not doing
we'll
anything.
get to it in a minute. We'll get to it in a minute. I don't know. Your broad complaints here feel kind of weird to me. Like, I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. I mean, whatever. Like,
Yeah,
that's fine.
it's not. It's not. If it was all like, again, if we were just getting the Kelly stuff, and then I think it's also breaking it up where it feels like these feel like two backups that they're smashing together, right? Like, I could get if we were getting more of the Jon Stewart stuff and more of the Joe stuff, but just they almost feel split evenly, and I don't feel like enough's getting the attention. That could be part of it.
Well,
Stuff like
it doesn't feel like that. It's literally split evenly.
No, I know, but I'm saying, but one side could feel more important than the other. Like, that's what you're putting emphasis on. So I feel like I'm reading two separate books in one. Whereas I feel like if we had gotten an arc that was all the Joe stuff, and then we got an arc that was all the Jon Stewart stuff as it goes, I think I might enjoy that a little bit more. But just the way that this is split in two, it feels like I'm reading two backups where, I don't know.
The format doesn't bother me in any particular way. I mean, I am definitely enjoying the Joe and Kelly side of the story more than I'm enjoying the John side. But the John side still has its moments, and there's still things I like about it. To me, this is kind of a classic story for any character to go through, or any group of characters, where you strip them of their main crutch, of their main thing, and it's all about showing how they're still those people even without their powers. Or it's a classic superhero trope. Every superhero's went through this in some way. Whether it's Superman losing his powers, whether it's Bruce Wayne losing his money, whether it's whatever. Take your pick. Spider-Man no more.
I mean, he does that like every 4 years.
Yeah, the list goes on and on and on. So it's not just, and obviously there's been stories before where Hal will lose his ring or John will lose his ring.
Well,
but
and that's the whole thing. It's not like this is not anything that's new. I mean, again, Thorne, the way that he's telling the story is fine, but like we've done the no ring lantern kind of thing, and I just don't find this version of it interesting. Like, I get to the John stuff, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'll get through this, versus the Joe stuff where I like her as a character and I like Kelly as a character, and seeing how these are our two Green Lantern representatives who aren't actually Green Lanterns as we know them, right? Like, who knows what Kelly's gauntlet is, and Joe's ring is completely, we don't even know who gave it to her. And we know that it just runs off of, like, not off of a typical power battery. We know all the different stuff. So the fact that these are our two lanterns, to me, that's way more interesting than what John's doing. But that's just me.
Yeah,
also,
but it isn't even split. It's literally 50-50 in the book, so it's kind of weird to lean so heavily into the John stuff that you don't like, and sort of like give the other stuff like a sort of passing mention after the fact. Like, I mean, I do like this stuff, but I was like, it is half and half. It is literally split down the middle.
Right. So I like the front half of this issue more than the back half.
I don't get a lot of what you're saying. A lot of it just feels like sentences that don't make sense to me. And like, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fair. But like,
yeah,
I don't understand how you're contextualizing some of it.
Because I'm not enjoying what I'm reading, and when I think about why I don't enjoy it, I try to explain it that it's just not, to me. This Jon Stewart stuff it's not interesting. I get it. He doesn't have the ring, and this is what makes him a hero. But we already know all this about John.
But that's not why it's not, like, if I agreed that it's not interesting, and I don't think it's amazing. Like, I don't think it's the weaker half of the book, but the part that makes it not interesting isn't that he doesn't have the ring. That's like that is not the issue at all. If it's not interesting, it's because you're not enjoying the characterization, or you're not enjoying the other characters that he's interacting with, or you're not enjoying the storytelling craft. Like, that's the problem. It's not the fact that he doesn't have the ring. You're boiling it down to this really simple like concept that's
okay. So then, thinking about it like that, then I really don't care about the planet that he was stuck on. Like, he saved him from the slavers. They launched the ships. They did all that. Like I just it again. It feels like I'm reading. It almost feels like a different book. That's like again. I don't want to say it's not Green Lantern, but it doesn't feel like. It feels like this hard sci-fi book that I wouldn't read if Green Lantern wasn't on the title, right? Like if I went into this book and this was a completely different character than John Stewart or Kilowog or anybody, I would have stopped reading it by now because I'm just like, oh, it's a typical sci-fi story where he's going to overcome not being a space cop anymore or whatever. You know, that's not what I'm looking for in the title, I guess. Versus the annual, right? Whereas that's what I look for in a Green Lantern book. That's to me, that's what when I pick it up, that's what I expect to read. So, you know, because well, I'll from another universe when Thor wasn't Thor anymore, I didn't have any issue with that because of the story that Aaron chose to tell with Thor being unworthy and you know Jane Thor picking up the hammer and having her adventures. You know, that story went I was fine with because so I guess it's just all the story that Thorne's telling deciding to tell is just not I'm not enjoying it.
Yeah, so it's not this so it kind of that disproves your original point then, right? It's not about it not being a Green Lantern book, whatever that means in this context. It's more just the actual storytelling itself that's the issue.
Sure. I mean, I just boiled it down to as quick as I could why I thought I wasn't enjoying it. And thank you for helping me uncover what the actual underneath is.
Well, because it was a vague statement that broadly doesn't really mean anything. Like, you know, you could say that about anything you don't like and say, well, this isn't really a this thing, but well, what kind of is? It's just, you know.
Well, I mean, anything could be I mean, this could be a Batman story for all, you know, like, you know what I mean? So I understand that. But what I was enjoying with like issue 1, like the free fall this book has done from issue 1 where I came in like, oh man, this is great. I love this like so much, even more than you. I don't remember how Connor felt about it. Maybe he wasn't here.
He wasn't super hot on it.
Yeah, so like, but I was like, man, this is great. This is a step in the right direction. It feels fresh and feels new. And now I'm just kind of like, well, this is not. I'm not enjoying the story anymore. Like,
yeah, I disagree with that narrative. I don't think it's free falling at all. I think issue 2 is better than issue 1, and I think that the Kelly and Joe side of the story has been very consistent. In fact, I think the John side of the story has been fairly consistent. If anything, the John side of the story got a little bit better because it wrapped up that planet stuff that was a little bit dull. And for the most part, we're leaving that population behind. Like, there's that one main character who's still there to talk to him, but even she doesn't feel like she's coming with him as he goes on this mission.
Now we're getting space angels that look like Zoriel, and I'm just like, all right.
But anyway, you've torpedoed this conversation because we're supposed to work through the book, right? So, Joe goes down to New Corrigar, dealing with the various lanterns as she can, and of course Sinestro looks at her and goes, "You've got a ring. You have a working lantern ring. What is this?" And immediately, because one of the things I liked about this is that when she's on the ship, she's actually watching like recordings and like footage of old Sinestro fights and trying to understand what he's like because she's never met him before. Unlike every other Green Lantern that's been in a Green Lantern book, she's never encountered Sinestro, so this is kind of a big deal. And she's in with a lot of swagger, a lot of confidence because she's Joe.
Very, very much the Joe that we know from her book. Like I felt like this was almost cut right from that one. What was that book called? Help me out here. My brain's not working so good right now.
Far Sector?
Far Sector, there we go. So this felt very much like her talking to one of the leaders in Far Sector. You know, she goes in there with the same tone.
Yeah. Sinestro even appreciates that, to be honest. he kind of laughs and says, "You're a delight." And I can't really deny any of these things you've just called me because she calls him a murderer and what was there? Dictator, ruthless, methodical, focused, gifted tactician. Whole list of things.
He's doing yes, and yes.
Yes. So, but she does agree that he's not a liar. And she's like, "Well, okay, I'll ask the question that I'm here to ask. Are you responsible for the power battery?" And he basically says, "Nope, if that was me, I would have pissed on the grave of Oa."
He would have wrote his name across the carcass of that was Oa.
Yeah, I kind of
that checks out for Sinestro.
What I kind of dig about this as well is that in the previous issue, obviously Simon showed up to get Kelly. We never even got a hint, I don't think, or maybe we did like a small one, but there wasn't really any indication that I remember that Joe was also there and was also doing stuff on the planet. So I kind of like this, that we get the start of it before they launch, and it's like, oh, she's here too. And no, but she goes and speaks to Sinestro this entire time. That's what's going on. And it also explains why Sinestro didn't show up to like fight Simon or get involved with anything else that was going on down there, right? When all that stuff was happening. He was too busy talking to Joe. So
right.
I kind of like that. I like that double side of this encounter. And I think it's notable because it's Joe interacting with Sinestro for the first time, who is the most prominent anti-hero to antagonist, depending on, you know, where we are Green Lantern story-wise. So I think that encounter is a big deal. And because she is this kind of offshoot Green Lantern who does have a different attitude, who doesn't necessarily respect the system in the same way that everyone else does, because she didn't go through it the same way that everyone else did. And even Sinestro, that separates her from, because Sinestro went through the Green Lantern process like everyone else does. He went through it like Hal Jordan. He went through it like Kilowog and everyone else.
He was Hal's teacher.
Yeah. He was an active Green Lantern. And she's different from him. She didn't go through that same experience. So, and that's maybe why he does respond to her. Maybe that's why he does enjoy this interaction, because she does respond differently to the other ones. Not that they're all not, because not that they're all not unique in their own ways, because they are, but she's just fundamentally different.
But even Simon's a step closer to going through it more than Joe is, and I think Sinestro would have had a different reaction to had him come down, barreling down, you know. So her outsider perspective is what brought to him, because he's the ultimate, like, because to me, deep down, Sinestro is still a Green Lantern, you know, like he has this whole, basically, you know, I don't want to say cosplay because they have their own thing, but he formed his own group based almost off of the antithesis of what the Green Lanterns were. But, you know, so he's always been an outsider. And so she can reach him that way, and I did like that.
Yeah, and then we jump to the second story, second half of the book, which is starts with a Kilowog distress call, which they're watching, and we get the hints of these angel-like beings that are putting people into a trance and making them all walk into a portal. This is happening on the planet that Kilowog's stranded on. Only him and a few other people are immune to this trance that they're all put into. And then the recording cuts off, and, like, you know, John and Salak are all, like, super concerned. And it basically is like, okay, we have to get to him, we have to help him, all the rest of it. But the alien that came with John, she's like, hey, now we know about these beings, and kind of links up to his brain and shows him the history that she knows about. This is like her grandparents' memories of this war that happened once upon a time. These were beings that came out, and because they were so angelic looking, people actually thought they were, you know, from heaven or godly or whatever. And it basically put a lot of people into a trance, and they all just, like, sort of walked into these portals for them, and it just kind of sets up the kind of the trouble they're dealing with. So it's basically just all them setting up to go on this mission. And John gets upset when he recognizes one of the characters who was on Oa when the power battery went. Lonar is his name, which is kind of a weird name, to be honest. And that's kind of the end of the issue, is like them taking off with this. So first half's definitely stronger. There's no denying that. I don't think the storytelling in the back half is too bad, though. I do like the distress call from Kilowog starting things off, and it being about going to rescue him. It's just that, you know, some of the backstory with these angel-looking aliens is kind of whatever. Like, I'm not, like, this is the thing. I think I probably sound super positive because I'm countering your
probably
your super negativity. But like, I don't think it's an amazing comic book. I think I said this about Flash as well, but I think it's just a really good B-tier Green Lantern book, and I'm kind of enjoying the pulpiness of it. I'm enjoying some of the character development, particularly for Joe. and some of those other characters in that first half. But even the John side of it, like all these lanterns try to deal with the fact that so many lanterns are dying, none of them have rings, and everyone's desperate. Like, there's going to be a fun turning point in this story where it's like, okay, we have to go on the offensive. And you know there's going to be a moment where all the lantern rings come back online. And it's going to be some big payoff to the 2 or 3 arcs that we go through without them. I'm having fun with it. It's never a tough read. And I did feel the length of that annual, whereas I never felt the length of this, even though it's a little bit longer than a regular issue. So it's about 30 pages as opposed to 20. Each story gets about 15. So yeah, the art is definitely better in the first half as well. I will say that. The art in these, the big head syndrome, it's not as prevalent, I'll say, in this particular issue. But you can definitely tell it's the same artist. I will say that. So, not bad. But because of that first debate, that went on a bit longer than I thought Green Lantern would. That's Matt's fault.
That's my fault.
I'm blaming Matt.
So I'm being quiet now.
I'm not prolonging this anymore. Matt, what are you rating Green Lantern issue 6?
6.
Well, how on point, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I'll go with a nice, comfortable 7. I was tempted to go 7.5. I won't quite go that high, but I really like Joe's first interaction with Sinestro. I don't hate the John Stewart stuff. I'm enjoying it well enough, but it's definitely the weaker half of the.
I shouldn't say I hate it. I just don't like it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you come in making big swings, this is not what I want in a Green Lantern book. This is not what I want.
It's not, but.
Yeah, but
it's not a lie.
Yeah,
it's not a lie.
You repeat it a few times, it starts to sound like I hate this piece of trash. Why is it in my existence? Get it out of my face.
No, because I reserve that for very few things. Yeah,
like Star Wars. All right.
No. You're the one that's excited over that video game getting a re-up.
I'm not excited. I said people would be happy about that. I was acknowledging it was a big announcement. That was all.
Yeah, I know. That was just payback for you telling people through the Mild Fuzz account to wish me a happy Batman Day when it happens.
Excuse me, it was the at DC Comics podcast account, our Twitter.
Yeah. So, I know. People saw it. People thought it was hilarious. I wasn't one.
Well, yeah, but there's also an at Mild _Fuzz Twitter.
Gotcha. Well, it was the show one, and yeah, so I had to get Pete back by trying to make it sound like he was excited for what is this? Knights of the Old Republic? No, whatever that game is.
Yeah, that's the one.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
KOTOR? Yeah, that one. Jeez, Vidya Games.
There's a remake, yes. There's also going to be a Wolverine game by Insomniac who made Spider-Man, which...
Yeah, my brother texted me, told me I should be excited. I was like, bro, I still have games from like 3 years ago that I haven't played. I'll get to it eventually. That said, God of War has a Thor that looks very much like me, so that's cool.
Oh dear. All right. The Swamp Thing issue 7, Ram V writing, Mike Perkins on the art. Obviously, this has been a highlight, this book, since it started. Connor was a little bit more critical of the last issue. Not that he didn't like it, but he was disappointed of this Suicide Squad kind of connected section taking up multiple issues. I honestly
don't mind it because it gets into the how Levi ended up.
Yeah, I think especially with this issue, I think it's very clear here that this is less. Yeah. I mean, technically they can call it a crossover because it's a Suicide Squad that are here. But this is still very much the Swamp Thing story that happens to have some Suicide Squad guest stars in it. Like, you know.
And of course, a multinational company is gonna call Amanda Waller and go, "Hey, get us in there." We're having issues.
We ended last issue with the big cliffhanger of Heatwave being attacked by Swamp Thing from behind.
We did end up well for Heatwave.
Yeah, we get the aftermath of that. We also get some wonderful art of Chemo walking through and basically just destroying parts of the forest because his radiation's just killing it, which is delightful in a dark way. But yeah, so this is something that was in the last issue as well as the flashbacks to his relationship with his brother and his father. The idea that he was there to represent the company, Levi. He's there to sort of convince them to, because his dad's on like the board of like the townsfolk.
The Elder Council.
Yeah, the Elder Council. And the company wants to take the forest, and they're going to say no. Is the ultimate thing. But we get these flashbacks, and we get the idea that Levi's connecting to the forest, and he's like seeing the entire history of this place. He's seeing, you know, ancient beings. He's seeing the oil industry, the industrial age sort of come in and things like that.
You said it perfect with the history of the region, and as it ends now, and almost you kind of see why the Green reached out.
Yeah.
Through him.
And then the Suicide Squad member whose name I cannot remember.
I don't know. I don't know her.
But she's got like weird telepath powers or whatever, because she basically is able to convince.
I'll tell you, this is what League of Comic Geeks is good for. That the other site that we used to use wasn't Diamond. That most of the time they'll tell you who's in the book.
True. DC Wikis.
Nightmare Nurse,
there you go. And that makes sense, because he thinks she sees Jennifer.
Well, she feeds off of his trauma, and as we've learned, Levi has a lot of trauma.
Has a lot of trauma,
especially surrounding this area and his homeland.
And this leads us into the flashbacks where he's talking to his brother and his father, and his father's talking about the roots. Feel the roots. They're thousands of years old, and he tells this story about the story of ancient days where I just want to get the phrasing right here.
It's local folklore.
Yeah, it's local folklore about this brother who was trying to heal his brother by finding the cure in the forest, and basically ultimately realized that the cure was to carry the whole forest on his back, right? It was all about the idea being that there wasn't a quick fix, and this story's fine on its own. I thought the way this came back up later was wonderful. Like, I thought that was like the punch of the book, where it was like, okay, it all came together in that moment. Mm-hmm. But he's like, no, this is progress. The company should come in. It should come in and like, advance science by using the rich resources in this place. And as far as you just don't get it, for someone with all that education and all the fancy, the job titles, you really an idiot sometimes. And I love how he keeps teasing Chemo. Like, when Nightmare Nurse is like, all tied into Swamp Thing and he's still lying down. There's just these panels every so often of Chemo walking through a barren forest with just nothing but dead branches.
Around him, yeah.
Really
like,
good stuff.
He's really a force of destruction.
It's really, really good stuff. And again, it continues this, and we get sort of the dark ending to this backstory, which is basically the council voted against the company, but the company basically just paid off the government to put in some laws that would allow it to claim it, and the council and the townsfolk decided to protest. It turned violent, and his father got shot. This is how his father died. Is a protest that came from the company he was representing through a chain of events.
Right, and so he has tremendous guilt. So I thought this was just his father dying of cancer, a heart issue, but when you come to find out, it's from an act that he's kind of responsible for, and then when you tie that into the brother and his memories of his brother being so upset, it all makes sense now. This was kind of the one that pulled the veil back, the one issue that we understand why he was in the state that he was in at the beginning of the book. He wasn't sleeping. He was having all these issues. Everything makes sense now.
Yeah, I think the way it was implied at the start of it, maybe they'll still do this, but we kind of took it as, his brother did something that resulted in becoming Swamp Thing. But this issue kind of makes me think that it was just the absolute dose of trauma that came from this entire experience, and what his brother said to him right before his father got killed.
Right.
Is actually what triggered
it. Levi,
right.
And to Levi, he might not have even a clear picture, right? Because of where mentally he was when all this was going on. And now through coming back to the forest.
Given that this part of the arc isn't done with this issue, I suspect there's still more to learn next time through flashbacks that may actually further clarify exactly how he became the new Avatar of the Green, how he became the new Swamp Thing. But when you look at like past versions, there's usually a scientific accident. The way it kind of sounded like with his brother, it was almost making me think of like almost like a cheetah style thing where the brother like made some sort of pact with the forest, and
that's what I thought too.
And this obviously everything we see in these flashbacks does not even imply that at all. It does not even hint towards that. So to me, the way it talks about in this issue, particularly when Nurse is cutting into him, she's talking about how his trauma is what the green connects to, and you know that's what she's like exploiting, and she's going to maybe sever it so that he can't connect to the green anymore. And again, it's teasing Chemo. We get that big panel of him like stomping through the forest, and it's like the panel's looking up from under his foot and all this stuff. But ultimately, when she's doing this, and this to me I thought was a fantastic payoff to the earlier story that his father told him, is that sometimes the cure is to carry the mountain. The idea being that he's only ever going to deal with his trauma and deal with his pain if he lives with all of it and learns to deal with it. Cutting it out and forgetting it and not knowing about it is not the cure. That's not going to be the solution. That's not really getting better. What's actually getting better is living with all of it.
And that's
all of it's important.
And that's when you think about the other avatars that we've met through Swamp Thing, it's kind of that kind of is what they all share, right? Like for the longest time, Swamp Thing wasn't actually Alec Holland, right? It was just his memories and him, not realizing that. And then when it was him and him learning basically have to deal with being this creature, no longer a man, a Swamp Thing, and now this is a whole different take on that. Man, Ram V is really good at this, because it is Swamp Thing as we know it, but he's added this layer of the guilt and the trauma and him wearing this like a badge almost.
Yeah, he's given this option to like lose all these memories and lose being the Avatar of the Green, and he'll just and they won't even have a reason to like do anything to him because then he'll just be a guy lying in the forest. They'll just leave him alone. But he's like, no, I have to keep these memories. Like that's the one thing he feels in this moment. So she leaves him in this cave, and the issue ends. Chemo just vomits radiation into this cave, and we see like him almost melting into just like toxic waste. But there's a panel at the bottom of this of Swamp Thing's hand holding the hand of his father. You can see like the hospital tag and the tube, the IV, and it's this kind of symbolic moment of him sort of embracing his trauma, embracing his past, and what he's and that the big final page is him just like going like super Swamp Thing on Chemo, head to head.
And he calls upon the green and his knowledge of the green to focus on plants that are like they put up a fight against.
He said the plants that are known to resist certain types of toxic elements, and he lists a few of them, which is a really neat thing. And the cool thematic thing at the end of this as well is that when we do get this full page spread of him attacking Chemo at full strength, he refers to himself and Kazaranga together, meaning the idea being that he's fighting him with the full force of this forest, this jungle, which is it's ancient, but it's thematically though, it's the very thing that his father was trying to save. So it's super symbolic, and the idea that he can only even fight this battle and win this battle with the full strength of everything that his father was trying to save. There's a lot of subtext, there's a lot of layers there to that, which is kind of beautiful.
No, not kind of. It is. Like it's, it really informs who Levi is now.
Yeah, that's his strength, right? So the mountain he's carrying is literally also his strength, and that's just the metaphorical mountain, I should say, is also literally his strength.
Right. Well, that's why I brought it that it's ancient, because it's just as ancient. Like in that story, it's the same forest, right? Like the dad brings up, this was Kazaranga before the British planted more trees and made it a reserve. This all the way back. This forest has been here before us, and hopefully it'll be here after us. And it's this ancient source, that ties him back to everything that now becomes his strength. And it's that familial line. It's really good.
Yeah, that's just great stuff. You know, yeah, I don't feel the Suicide Squad element is impacting it. Like,
Not at all.
last issue might have arguably been one of the weaker issues of the book, but only because the standard's been so high.
It's almost like the issue that we got where Perkins took a break with the bomb in London. It was almost like that was a break, and this is picking up new issues. You know what I mean? Like it's a new story arc that starts with that one and is gonna go till 10. Because I feel like thematically, this is the meat of the story. Not so much like issues 1 through 4 were great, and I really liked them. But that issue, what was that, issue 5? So yeah, the first 3 issues, and then 4 was the break, right?
No, 5 was the break.
No. Okay, 5 was the break. So anyway, 6, it felt like not a fresh start because it didn't need to be fresh, but it felt like this is where it's going, and it felt like I didn't get Connor saying that about the Suicide Squad. Like they were fine. It wasn't like it was leaning on them. At least I didn't think so.
No, I mean he wasn't like super negative on it, but it was more. He was disappointed that this was going to be multiple issues of them being involved. When, and to be honest, like yeah, last issue was probably the weakest issue of the run, but like it still had some good stuff in it, and then this issue I think is really paying off a lot of the things that it was able to set up. So I mean I have no real complaints.
They feel like foils for the storytelling that we were able to through Night Nurse, even her powers. Like we didn't realize her on the Suicide Squad. That's the beauty with the Suicide Squad though, is you can almost put any villain on there.
I mean it gives context to some of the flashbacks is her kind of like sort of taking them out of them or looking at them at the very least.
And yeah, Peacemaker fits in too, and you get the tie-in to smartly into the movie that came out last month, right when that issue came out. So you get more eyes on it. I mean, yeah, I don't get that. This book's still real good. Even like you said with the weaker last issue, which I didn't find was that weak. I mean, compared to the other ones, maybe, but
yeah, it wasn't weak. It was just weaker compared to the standard that this run has set up. So yeah, I mean, I just hope that there's more than 3 left. I hope that we do get a second wave of this run by Ramvi and Perkins. I would very much appreciate that. All right, what are you giving this book?
9.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll go with the 9 as well. So that's cool. Black Manta issue 1, Chuck Brown writing with Valentine D. Landro on the art. This was teased a little bit in the Aquaman 80th anniversary special last week. So I did not read this. I did.
No, I ran out of time. Being a short week and it's been crazy at work. I wish I wanted to read this, but I just ran out of time. Because the art, I'm sure the art is phenomenal. I love D'Andro.
Yeah, the art is great. The art is really the show stealer in many ways. I think it's a very easy read as well. Like the dialogue is reserved, and the writer knows to keep it light and let the art do a lot of singing, which is really, really nice. There's kind of a nice thing at the start here where Black Manta's on a jet ski and he's talking about what is my legacy? I'm a pirate. I'm a mercenary. Blah blah blah. And it cuts to a ship where some pirates have taken over this ship and they're holding hostages. And Black Manta ends up kind of inadvertently coming in and being the hero that saves them. But he's not actually there to save them. He's there to settle a score because they stole something from him and doesn't give a shit about the innocent hostages. But the issue jumps around various plot threads. We have that kind of playing out. We have kind of how he meets a couple of people when he was kind of on a heist, essentially, and how he found the big rock, which he then cut the small piece out of that was teased in that 8th anniversary special. And that kind of sets up a couple of different things. So I mean, I guess if I have a critique about this issue, because I think it reads very well and it's always great looking. and it's paced very well. The only real issue I'd have with it is maybe not having a solid grasp on what the point of the story quite is yet. Clearly this rock is affecting people. It's giving like migraines or aneurysms to like people around the world. There's like a sort of panel where you see a bunch of people in Gotham, Japan, Ethiopia, Star City, Coast City, all reacting, and it depends on like maybe genes or something as to who it's affecting. That stuff's kind of neat. It is affecting Black Manta as well. He's also having these headaches. And Gallows, the woman who's there with him, is like telling him, you know, maybe some of this is unsafe, or maybe you know, this rock's too dangerous to mess with. Like, you know, what are we going to do? And there's a bit of a conflict between them as well, because she's sort of like had a few situations where she's made a point of not killing people, and he's like, you know, it'd have been quicker just to kill X, Y, and Z person, and she's like, no, like, I have no problem killing someone, but I'm also not going to do it for no reason. If there's another way of doing it, we'll take the non-lethal approach. So they're having a bit of a conflict there. Yeah, and Gallows has a pretty funny joke actually here as well, where she says that if she kills Black Manta, she might make a fortune by just selling his helmet to Batman, because she hears he likes to collect trophies. So I actually call it that. The big thing at the ending, though, is that we go to the underworld, and there's like a statue. Presumably, this, you know, we're talking underworld, underwater here, and basically, Zebellians probably are immune to whatever the rock is doing. This mysterious rock that we still haven't quite talked about, or explained exactly what it is. But this statue sort of like cracks and then smashes, and then out comes a woman from it. And she's got like a flame sword. There's gargoyles. There's gargoyles around her saying, you know, go back to sleep. And she's like, out of my way, abominations. And she goes smashing through the cave walls and goes to freedom. And she's got like big, bushy white hair. I have no idea what's going on, right? There's definitely some mystical elements to this rock, and it's clearly awoken someone who was asleep in a gargoyle. I will say, like, there's kind of like a Dr. Fate style symbol. Like when they go to in the heist portion, when Black Manta is going with a couple of cronies to collect it, he opens a pocket dimension, so he's actually got some Dr. Fate-esque magic. So he opens a little. So it's like a container that's in like a shipyard, but it's like hidden in a pocket dimension. Or maybe he just uses the pocket dimension to like, go inside it. Yeah, maybe that's all it is. He just opens a pocket dimension so they can walk inside through the door.
So it's like an Ankh, the Luke cross.
Yeah. That's how he gets inside the container. I thought that was a fun beat. But yeah, there's like very little to say as to what this rock actually is. I mean, presumably since Zebellian DNA should make you immune to the migraines, I imagine it's going to link up with Atlantean or Zebellian or some other underwater connective bit of history or something. I mean, it's a very easy read. The art's very good, and the voice for Black Manta is pretty strong. It's a very confident book, I would say. But it is banking on you kind of like being into this mystery, and if anything, the only part of it that I think is kind of weak is the mystery itself. Because right now it just feels very undercooked, where I'm like, you've not really given me enough to really tease much out of me, unless maybe for hardcore Aquaman fans that know all of Aquaman's history, maybe this is like touching a button for them. Maybe this is making them go, oh, I get this reference, or I know who this character might be who's just came out of the statue underwater, but I don't have a goddamn clue.
They don't have anybody listed on they are Comic Geeks, so they only have 2 characters listed. So
yeah, I don't know, but this was it was very readable though. Like, I actually had a really fun time reading it just because it was so easy to read and the art's really good. So, list of books permitting next month, I will probably read issue 2 of this just because it is such an easy goddamn read. But Yeah, I mean, as it is, I would probably give it like a 7. I think, and maybe that even seems maybe a bit high, given that I'm saying that I don't really understand what the story's doing yet. But it was a very pleasant read. It read quickly. The voice for Black Manta was good. I liked the banter with this other character, which I said in the preview story from the last anthology book. So that's still there, which is nice, and the art is very delightful. It's got a good vibe. So I think I'm down to check it out more, providing that it's not like ends up being a really busy week if there's a lot of new books starting next month. Which has happened a couple of times recently where I've said, oh, maybe I'll come back for issue 2, and then there's like 3 new books the following month, so I'm like, oh, nah, screw that. But hey, yeah, so I'll go 7 out of 10. I think the art is pretty strong. There's a lot of nice, inky, thick line work, which is kind of, the staple of this art is from the one, because it was those Future State Mr. Miracle backups was where we saw this artist before.
Yep.
So some of that same vibe in this, which I think it gives it like the faces really make me think of like an indie book, or even maybe like a Gotham Central-esque kind of looking book. Is kind of the art style that I'm getting from this. So
Nice.
Take from that what you will, but that's Black Manta issue 1. Don't have a whole lot to say though, which you could view as a negative in and of itself, but maybe it's one that I'll read better in trade once you can just read the whole thing. But that is issue 1 of a 6-issue miniseries. Batman Catwoman issue 7, Tom King and Liam Sharp. Yes, that's right, Liam Sharp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the usual. So that, I mean, obviously the art is still pretty good. That's pretty simple thing to say. I will say the one downside to this art change, other than just that it's a different artist and you'd like it to be consistent, is that I thought the difference in the time period was harder to tell at first.
100%
Yeah.
harder.
This was my problem. Yeah.
Because I got a little bit lost with the Bruce and Selena stuff.
Because obviously we've had these 3 time periods that have been constantly, and it plays into the whole Ghost of Christmas Present, Future Past thing that this is obviously dealing with because it's Christmas themed and all the rest of it. And I got it fairly quickly. It became clear the bank vault story was the present day with Phantasm, which meant that the sex scene stuff was obviously from the past, and obviously the older character stuff was the easiest one to tell, just because the characters look so different. But
even then, Sharp's older Selena doesn't look nearly as old as Man's Selena. So there's a little bit off there, but it's Liam Sharp. I mean, the stuff in the bank vault, when it really gets going, it really benefits from his sketchier art style.
Yeah. Can I just say, so the opening of this, right, is sexy in the past, and you've got the Christmas Carol playing in bubbles as they're having sex. Yep. I actually got a crack out of just reading the "O Come All Ye Faithful" over and over as they're having sex, because it's hard not to see particularly the "O Come" over and over again in a sex scene and not start to just giggle at the double entendre of it all. So, but then it cuts to the end of another sex scene, which is Batman in a bank vault, who, well, I say end of a sex scene, I'm saying that because he's naked, maybe I should just drug them and put him there, but I like to think they had sex in a bank vault.
And that's where because of the art style, right?
Yes. That's
where it jumps from the one to this, and I was like, what the hell happened? Like, and then it was, you start putting all the pieces together, that it would have been nice to differentiate.
I was fine after the few transitions, but I do think the coloring in the what do we call it? The thingy art.
Present?
No, there's the regular artist on this book.
Clayman.
Clayman, thank you. The Clayman art, I think the coloring difference between each time period is a lot more distinct, even for these two. But so Bruce wakes up and there's a letter saying, "Love you, Bruce, but I'm off with Phantasm to go kill Joker." The police are on the way. You're in the vault, and he's handcuffed behind his back as well. And then we cut back to the future. No pun intended. And it's Commissioner Dick going to Wayne Manor, and there's a kind of a joke here where it's like all the cops like sort of call in and say, "Oh, we got 6 snipers, and we got this group of guys here, we got SWAT over here," and then Dick goes, "It's not enough."
It's good, but it's not enough.
Yeah, and Selena opens the door, and he's like, "I need to arrest you. You killed Joker. This is what's happening." And at least had an interesting little conversation actually, where she asked, like, did Bruce ever tell you why you were dressed in yellow and red when you first started? And he says it was, Bruce said that it was, because it meant that you wouldn't be able to rely on stealth. You would
shadow.
It would like almost target your weaknesses, and you would have to like, overcome them. It was like a training thing, right? And Selena says something that's really dark, where Bruce said to her that the idea was that it was so silly that the Joker might think it was funny and then not want to kill you because you were too pathetic. And that's like really dark, especially since he did eventually kill a Robin, which just adds like an extra layer of sinister to it.
I'm glad I had a sigh of relief when it ended not being the Frank Miller reason that Robin's the target and Batman's not, and that's why he's in the bright colors. So the fact that here it's darkly sweet, that that you might make the Joker laugh being just like that, so he'll want to keep you around.
Yeah,
and then then you do the math that he eventually killed one.
Like you say, it's darkly sweet. That's a good way of putting it, because it's actually kind of a well-intentioned thing, but it's actually also really dark at the same time.
Yeah.
So then we cut back to the past sex scene, and Bruce is like, "Joker's been here. I can smell him." Basically, and he's like, "You going to tell me where he is?" And she's basically like, "No, I'm not." Then we get to maybe, like, I kind of love this, but it's also probably the worst art of the book, which is the physique on Bruce. We're back in the bank vault, and he's basically just like, dislocating. He
looks like Bane.
He does. His shoulders are that broad, but he gets himself out of the handcuffs, and I actually laughed out loud though when I saw what he was doing, because the police are coming to the vault door. He's about to encounter them, and how does he disguise his appearance? He does a wrestling thing. He blades. He blades.
That's a no-no in the E. All right.
Yeah.
He's getting fired.
He blades so that he can cover his face in blood, so no one will recognize him as Bruce Wayne. That's how he disguises himself when he's butt-ass naked. I kind of love this.
It does take the focus off of his naughty bits, right?
But that next page though, I was gonna say, that next page when he's spreading the blood around his face is super like dark and like sinister. So
like, when these cops bust into the bank vault, they're definitely not expecting a naked bloody guy there.
No, they definitely are not.
So yeah,
element of surprise on his side. Do you know what it is? Do you know what this is? This is the dark, broody version of the elevator Captain America scene. Because even because later on when we get to the scene where they're like sort of in the middle of the fight and he's beating the shit out of them, they're like, "Oh, we can barely use our weapons in here because it's too cramped." I'm like,
right,
okay, you know what? King's putting enough stuff in here. It's not just that he can take on an army of guys that have all got guns. It's they're in a cramped space. Obviously, shoot. When it comes to hand combat, he's clearly going to be better than all these cops. Right. Like,
and he's using their numbers against them, because he, and again, being naked, it covered in blood. He's probably more slippery too,
Probably true. Then we cut back to the future, and it's Helena talking to her father's costume, saying, "Father, I was a good girl." Basically saying, "How could you marry Mum? Like, she's not like us." She obviously clearly relates more to him. She has this sense of right and wrong, this nobility, and is like, "I'm sorry, I loved her. I know you did too." But she says it in the past tense, like she doesn't love her anymore because she committed a murder. It's really sad.
It shows that, like, the Wayne line of seeing things in black and white, she inherited that from her dad, because that's never been Selena, right? Selena is shades of gray, which is, when you think about the Phantasm, right, and being in the gray, but she's black and white as well. That Selena is in this no man's land. She's kind of a unique character in Batman's life.
Yeah.
So
I'm actually fascinated that we're only just past the halfway mark in this book, because it feels like we might be ramping up to the end, and we're obviously not. So I'm curious to see where this goes. So yeah, Selina refuses to tell him where the Joker is in the past, and he's like, you know, like, we can't do this anymore. And she's like, well, in that case, leave and never come back. And then they kiss, which just kind of summarizes their whole, relationship.
oh, he chases her
Yeah.
on rooftops. Like that's
Yes, and then we get the glorious page of him fighting an army of SWAT members covered in blood but naked.
It's a thing of nightmares.
The coloring is great, and it even pulls a bit of a Hannibal Lecter thing where he dresses up in one of their uniforms and goes out, and they all just think he's one of the cops, and he gets into like the ambulance, and then he like turns on the guy when the guy kind of just realizes for a second that, wait a minute, you're not one of the cops. And then we get the nostalgia pop, the callback to the Brubaker run with Selina getting the mugshot.
The famous cover.
Yeah, nice touch. And of course, when Batman was called away in the past, we see where he was called to. Jim Gordon's there at this house, and basically Joker had shoved a bunch of dead Santas in the chimney.
And they can't tell how many.
This is a very Joker murder. I'm just gonna put that out there.
They can't tell because they're so tangled. And it's just like, oh my god.
And Gordon's talking about how awful how awful he is, and it does this split page where half of it's like, past, and then the other half's the present, bloody Batman, and he's talking to Selina, who's wounded. Selina's got I have to say the art in this page isn't that great. I kind of hate.
No, this is the weak, like the low point, but it's at the end. So
yeah, this is Catwoman's body proportions where she has these silly long legs. Really, really weird.
It's like he wanted to make the 12 panel work but couldn't, so he had to play with proportions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's so sad is that she's leaning against the T-Rex leg, and the T-Rex leg's really well proportioned.
Right. That's what he really spent the focus on.
Maybe that's what he was worried about. But basically, Phantasm, like Joker, apparently in the heat of the moment when they tried to kill him, whispered something to Phantasm, and then Andrea turned on Selina and stabbed her with the scythe. The scythe, sorry. And so honestly, this is probably one of the better cliffhangers the book's had, because I can't wait to find out what the Joker said to her that made her turn, given how she felt before. So I'm kind of interested. Again,
she sees things in black and white. And, so what was it that she went from, I'm killing the Joker for being responsible for the death of my son, to I'm killing Selina?
Unless it was somehow the son's alive, I can take you to him. But maybe that's a bit too obvious. The final page is Selina, old age Selina, in jail, pulling a lockpick or a pin out of her foot, like out of her skin, so she can get out of the jail cell. Yep. So, old lady Selina still got the tricks. She still knows what she's doing. Of
course she does.
No denying that.
I also like too that when Helena's talking about it, it's like it's an open and shut case. Like she's going away for the rest of her life. Like there's no way she can get out. But Selina still has a trick or two up her heel.
So, I mean, the art is such a weird thing, because I think, the pages of Bruce, like, fighting covered in blood, like, all that stuff is, like, plays to its sharp strength.
It hits hard.
Yeah, right? It's so good. But then that page of Selina's proportions towards the end is terrible. I kind of get a kick out of the Bruce one, though, where he looks like Bane, just because it's kind of silly and stupid, but it's in kind of a fun way, where it's just like... Look at how built he is. He's like a tank.
Yeah. He's trying to compare his physique to a wrestler, right? He's very Batista-esque in his build, or Brock, but with a normal person's head. And it just doesn't make sense, even on a page, like out of proportion. It's almost Liefeld Captain America, but good. So, those two pages, though, but it's still Liam Sharp. Man, really, really good. Like I'm not complaining about the rest of the art.
No,
I just wish we could have seen what Liam Sharp's Phantasm looked like. That's the one thing that
we don't get to see that, do we? I mean, yeah, it would have been nice for Clayman not to have to miss an issue, but
Yeah.
Make lemons and all that jazz.
And wasn't this supposed to be John Paul Leon, or is that a different issue?
No, that's like a special, like a one shot. Yeah, that wasn't
Gotcha.
yeah.
Okay.
So I will say though, in terms of story developments and in terms of set pieces, this is maybe one of the best issues of this book. Like in terms of story, like I was so into old Selena being arrested. I was so into the naked bank vault fight.
Yeah.
The all the dead Santas in the chimney. Like I really like these beats, these story beats. So and even Helena talking to her dad, as it were. So yeah, all that stuff I thought was good stuff, and it's building to something. You know, obviously we're dealing with how the Joker's affected all these people, which is cool. Through various ways, and even how Bruce and Selena have affected their daughter through different ways, and I suppose in many ways it makes sense that Bruce's traits would be the dominant ones that would imprint upon the kid.
Well, I mean, she wears the bat, right? She wears the big ears and everything.
But I'm thinking from it makes sense that his sense of right and wrong was the one that was stronger. That was the one that the kid latched onto at a young age, presumably.
Yeah, because you feel like Selena can hide who she really is, whereas Bruce can't.
Yeah.
And so Selena was able to form into who she needed to be for Helena. And maybe that's why she's having such an issue, right? Is that she didn't want to come to terms with, this is who mom really is.
Which is interesting because you've got this idea that Bruce knew this to begin with and accepted it to a point, and then still chose to marry her, still chose to have a kid with her, all these things. Whereas for Helena, she grew up with Selena being the Selena that she became for the marriage and for the the motherhood, and it's only just towards this later part of her life maybe where she's fully getting a taste of what Selena's really capable of.
Yeah, coming to terms with it, and because Dick knows, like when all the SWAT people is like, it's still not enough, and she goes peacefully, So I want an interaction between Dick and Helena to see what that's like, because you would think that is her brother, However,
did we not have one where he had the signal?
Yeah, but I want a heart to heart, not just
a
Batwoman showing up. I want Helena and Dick to be like, and him to explain to her almost in a big brother fashion, like, no, this is always who your mother was. You just didn't want to, you didn't get to experience it because she became who she was to you. And I kind of want that coming from a big brother figure, so because she seems lost when she's talking to her dad's costume. She seems like lost, adrift in hopelessness almost, that she doesn't want to believe. She's in denial. So I want to see it pull through. And this is the type of stuff I think Tom King's really good at communicating through the comic form, is these kind of emotions.
I mean, you can't deny that the guy writes layered comic book stories, because how much do we sit and talk about everything that he does with his narrative and with his characters?
It's just certain stuff hits in other ways, and when he does these 12-issue books like this, I almost feel he's better at that because he has a end point to where he's working to, versus something with Comic Chains where he has to chain it together. And overall, because overall his Batman run, there's some really, really highs and some really, really low lows. And here I feel these 12-issue stuff with Mr. Miracle, Rorschach, Supergirl, it feels like they're consistent across the board more.
All right, what are you giving Batman Catwoman issue 7?
I'm gonna give this an 8.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that. 8 out of 10. I think it's an easy choice for me. The Nice House on the Lake, issue 4, James Tynion IV with Alvaro Martinez on the art. Obviously, this has been a very exciting book since it started. I think
this one takes a turn.
Sure, yeah. I think you were missing issue 3. I mean, I wouldn't reveal what I thought of this one yet, but issue 3 was my favorite so far. Up until that point, I really loved issue 3. And in this issue, Do you happen to know which character we're focusing on in this issue?
This is the comedian.
The comedian. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know who issue 3 was though. I mean I know the character's name and I recognize him. He's the map guy now. I don't know what his symbol was though.
That's fine. I don't remember that either.
But this guy I know is the comedian because that's how he kicks this off. And now I have to go back and look at the other issues to see if we can tie their symbol to their introduction.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the comedian, like the main part of the start of this, which is the flashback where he's talking about, I mean, he's in the future, but he's talking about how he first met Walter. Yep. It's basically the idea is that he's a bit of a joker, he's a bit of an idiot, but he's actually very observant and he's a bit smarter than people give him credit for. He picks up on things. And ultimately, this issue is him picking up on something. There's a rule that he picks up on by the end of this issue, which is a pretty big deal. So this issue, from a mechanical point of view, from like an in-world rules point of view, is like, okay, we've heard before that if they need supplies, they need food, that the
boxes just show up.
They'll get it, right? Well, we don't know about the boxes yet. This is something that just comes up in this issue.
That's right. See, I read 3 and 4 back to back.
Sure. Yeah. But so we knew that, like, it had been implied that they would never want for anything, right? They'd always get stuff. But obviously, they don't know exactly how that's working. We immediately jumped to, he's going to have it just magically appear, because, yeah. Right. But this issue makes it clear that if they write down a list out of a notepad that's provided, those things will just appear next day. If they want something that's privately for one person, that's just addressed to them, then they can just take their own bit of paper and put their name, and they can ask for their own things. And we get some examples of this. Mostly it's food, right? There's a couple of funny items, like a fleshlight at one point.
It says, "Don't judge."
Yeah,
that cracked me up.
But this is day 27. They've kind of learned this by now. Obviously, there was a bit of trial and error, you assume, as they were learning how to do this. And there's some rules that they bring up as they're talking about it, which is if they try and watch the porch where these boxes appear, they won't come. They don't come until no one's looking. So that's established in this issue, which is an interesting little detail. And the other thing here is that they have to be specific, and this issue kind of explores where they're at through what they're asking for and that kind of thing. So our comedian character is kind of going around asking everyone, like, what they're doing, but mainly if they remember how they arrived here. Like, did they fly to this airport, that airport? Did you drive up from here? And they're all being kind of cagey. They can, vague. I think I flew. I hate long drives, so I didn't do that. Or
that was the part that kept being brought up, is like they couldn't remember if they flew or drove. And I was like, well, that's a pretty crucial, like, that's something you don't forget.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. And then there's the one character, who
is it Molly?
Molly, I think it is, yeah, who is being really down and keeps asking if her package has arrived yet. And they're saying, no, nothing today. And everyone else seems to be getting theirs. So there's kind of a mystery as to what she's asking for. Maybe there's a rule to say that, you can't have that particular thing. So that's going on. And there's some fun jokes here where the comedian gets like a ridiculous zebra cowboy hat.
He's just as Ferris Bueller at one point.
Yes, fair, yeah.
There's that. And when you look, like he's asked for like ridiculously expensive booze. Action Comics 1, Detective 27.
Yeah. There's some really funny stuff on those lists.
And they're there, and like Fabergé eggs, and like you see his room at the beginning, and it's just littered with all this stuff.
And he's kind of become this guy who takes the boxes around and gives it to people. Yep. In fact, later on, he's clearly asked for a uniform.
Yep.
Because he's walking around
the delivery man.
Yeah, he's walking around in a postman's outfit. But he goes on the second or third day here, day 29, and he goes to Molly's door, or I think it's actually this other woman's door who's just staying with Molly.
Because she's been inconsolable since they've been there.
Yeah, and she's getting worse and worse the more these packages don't arrive. And the other woman says, hey, is there anything there for Molly? And he's like, no, sorry. And she says that she's even staying with Molly because she's even a little bit concerned of what might happen if she's alone. And he's like, wait, that bad? So it kind of raises this, it raises that idea, the idea that she might self-harm because of how she's feeling. and you know, and he notices, and again, this plays into what was set up at the start, is that he's played as a goofball, but he does pick up in things. He's the one that's asking these questions, and he notices, the map guy's map, right? He sees the house, but he also sees this mysterious building that this guy clearly did not tell anyone about, right? And then he runs into Molly again the next day, and she's like, nope, didn't come, did it? And she's like, nope. And he's like, yeah, I figured. And she collapses a little bit, and she's like, hey, I've got the list for tomorrow. And he's like, do you really want to know what it is that I've asked for? And he's like, yeah, sure. He's like, well, you can look at it. I've already written it. It's not like it matters. And there's a couple of examples of different things I've asked for. Some of them are quite funny. And then you get to hers, and it just lists them by day what it is. And it's Cameron, and there's a full name. And it's like, my husband, Cameron. And she's basically asking for a husband. And then after about 10 days of not getting him, right, of just not appearing, it's a handgun.
Yep.
Which is notable, because if you remember last issue 3, in fact, you just read it, so you should remember this, is that some of the characters found an armory in the library. So there is guns that are there if they really want to find them. But and then it's rope, and then the last 10 days are straight razor. It's super dark. It's really depressing, and the comedian character's looking at this, and he's sort of obsessing over it. And we see him grab a bit of paper himself, and sure enough, the next day he goes to get the packages, and it's there for him. It's been delivered because it was in his name, and he sees Walter watching from the forest. And he just looks out of it, and Walter's got that weird effect where his face is all split up and all that.
Face.
And he's like, you could have just told us the rules, man. And just what he walks in and says, it's nothing. He doesn't even act freaked out. Because this is, 20, 30 days into this, right? 29, 30 days into this. He's clearly used to this idea of Walter just sort of skulking around and maybe watching from time to time. But he goes back in, and he makes a kind of a... Well, actually, that's not quite yet. He goes to Molly first and gives her the razor.
Right.
And she's like, this is yours. Yeah, I asked for it for you. And explains that, you're hurting really bad, and you wanted at least to feel like you had the choice to do this, but Walter wasn't giving you the choice to do this. Even as bad as this is, and as much as I don't want you to do this, as much as this shouldn't be what you do. He gives her this pep talk, and ultimately says, look, I've got something that I really need to show everyone, but I kind of need to get that back in order to show you. And it sort of gives a bit of a cliffhanger there. So, okay, what's he going to do with it? And then it's set up throughout the issue that the others have planned this big meal, and they've all worked really hard on it, or at least the one character, Ray, has worked hard on it. And they're all having this big meal, and in walks the comedian with this razor blade. And he raises some interesting points that no one can remember how they got here. Right, everyone's very vague on it, which raises some questions. Did they actually physically travel here? I think a good point that one should be asking. Is this all in their collective heads, for example, is another question. But he then says, because he's got blood in his wrist, and I think at this point, most of us reading this figure know what he's about to say. The rule that he's discovered, that there's something that fundamentally they cannot do. And there's a page, the panel's from behind, so it's not too violent, but you see kind of a spray of blood. He tries to slit his own throat. And the end of the issue is him looking down at them, saying, we can't die, he won't let us, so we have to learn how to live. But one of the other things that he brings up before he makes his conclusion is that, hey, map guy over here found a building, and he never told any of us about it. Do you know what this is? I hate to boil it down like this, but this is basically from Lost. This is we either live together or we die alone.
Either die alone.
Yeah, that's what that's ultimately boiled down to, but in a really dark, sick kind of way.
Yeah.
Really good.
It is. Well, and it raises questions because the first time we see some of the characters in their intros, they are maimed. So something has happened, in the future.
Yeah, and that's what you mean. In the future, it looks like they can be hurt. Yeah.
Right. So something happens. It's also making me, because the comedian keeps bringing up aliens, and they're like, don't say that. and he's leaning really into the aliens, and he goes, "Don't say the A word in the kitchen," and all this other stuff. So, as the time goes by, they're starting to question things, and what exactly is Walter, and what exactly is going on here? Is he an alien? Is he? And it just makes me, with Tynion and stuff, it almost makes you wonder if this is like a philosophical statement on choice and free will, and and what does Walter actually represent in that term? Is this his take on God, big G God?
I mean, we've definitely talked about that before. I mean, I think all these themes are definitely there. I mean, I think it's far too early in this story to even begin to.
I mean, we're a quarter way through, right? Because it's 12 issues.
Yeah, but we're taking a massive break after issue 6, like which was planned. I feel like right now, like, this is making me question, like, are they supposed to like try and figure out how to break the rules? Like, the idea of like him picking someone who is disobservant, who might figure things out, like. Is he there just so that they all learn to like work together because that's the message he's giving them right now? Or is there a longer end game here? Is the reason why things have broken down in the future, is that because they did something they weren't supposed to do? Or is it because they have rebelled and did something that Walter was expecting or hoping they were going to do at some point?
Right, like he's leading them to a certain destination. And I don't know. And it also is interesting who Walter is to each of them, because reading 3 and 4 back to back, Walter's a very different friend to, was it Steven, the book guy, than he is to the comedian. Like, it feels like the book guy was a lot closer to Walter than he was. So what does that mean in the grand scheme of things? Because, like, did Walter want the comedian to piece this together as he's doing it, and that's why he indulged his every whim, all the stuff that he wanted, Or is this throwing a wrench into things? Him seemingly not to care, but he was chosen because he pieces things together.
I don't think we can avoid not point out one of the obvious little, not a plot hole per se,
right?
But if they can't kill themselves, then why wouldn't he give the razor blade to Molly in the first place? Is it because he doesn't want them to learn that they can't kill themselves? Does he just give up because clearly
could just be a game that he's playing with?
Could be a game he's playing, or is it because he realizes that the comedian's like figuring things out and there's no point in hiding it anymore?
But like, issue 3 made it such a point that Walter cares about his friends. Like, he cares too much. So again, maybe that's why. Maybe because he knew the comedian wasn't going to hurt himself, right? And that Molly would have figured this out before they're supposed to. I don't know. Like, there's a lot of questions at play here.
Yeah, maybe it was just, it had to be day 30 or so before he was willing to let this out the bag.
Right. Well, and also there's in the other house too, in that building that he found, there's a whole, there could be a whole other group of people, right? Because, let's call them the tailies here. If you're bringing up Lost. There was I
don't think it's the same. I don't think the people in if I mean, that's assuming there's multiple. We saw one character last issue, right? Who looked like they were in pain. It looked like they were begging for help, and they were like crying because they weren't being heard or seen by our main character. I don't think that suggests to me that they're all living in a house like this group are. If there is a group of them,
but I was just, for lack of a better term, but. There was someone that was referenced earlier. His name was Reg.
And
that's who he thought that he heard. And then we don't know if that is Reg. We just know it's another person that's banging that knows who the book guy was. You know what I mean? So what's going on in that building? There's something else going on there too. So
I've not. It's been a month since I read issue 3, but I'm pretty sure we knew who that character was that was banging inside that building.
I don't have it on my.
At the very least, it was heavily implied that it was. So it was the character. It was the friend who didn't come. It was the friend who either turned it down or whatever, or wasn't invited.
Right. There's significance to who it was, and so, but again, because the whole point was that Walter cares about his friends. So that was the main theme that I took from 3.
Well,
Where here,
he cares about them until he traps some of them in this weird prison.
how do we know this is not a form of him carrying in a twisted sense of, you know what I mean? Because like you said, he didn't give it to Molly, knowing what she wanted to do, because he knows their intent of giving them stuff.
I mean, no, you may be right, but like nothing about that ending to issue 3 suggested anything but sinister. Nothing
Right.
about that felt positive.
No, I'm not saying it is positive.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there's something in that building going on as well that I'm sure,
So your point here is that there's something else going on in that other building.
like when you're talking about, like, he wouldn't have let the map guy get there, right? Because if he's watching, like, the comedian has noticed him, I'm just putting that out there to play into your, maybe it's a timing thing, like, I don't know. But there seems to be a sense of care to him that, yeah, there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to. Obviously, not all of these theories are going to lead to something, and some of them will be completely wrong. Because I imagine that, especially end of issue 6, I assume is going to have a big cliffhanger that's going to reveal something huge that's going to completely shake everything up, which is nice. But I think right now, what I'm loving about this story is last issue was very much a character who started to problem solve. It was a character who tried to figure out what the boundaries of their map was. Like, where is the edge of where we can go? And that led to this discovery, which had its whole host of what the hell's going on here, mystery, monolith style. And then this issue, you have a character who's picking up on more social things, like more what are the rules of what they can and cannot do, some of the clues that suggest maybe how they've been manipulated, and they just might in some ways be the person that helps keep them together and sort of build forward into something that's helpful. So I like the problem solving. I'm always down for figuring out what the rules are. So the fact that the characters are kind of piecing these things together is very neat to me, and it appeals to me in a lot of ways. So very curious to see how they all click together. But obviously the art is very, very good.
So that's what it was. So I just had to look back up thing. Sam came last minute and replaced Reg.
Okay.
Because they made a big deal that him and his partner were there, and they were kind of last minute. So what if Reg showed up and now he's just being kept in that house, in that building? Because he's, you know what I mean?
Sure. I just kind of read it as like Walter, because he didn't come, took him and prison him there. I mean, maybe it is that he tried to show up late. Maybe he tried to surprise them or something. I don't know.
Right.
So,
cool.
That could be a circumstantial thing. But yeah, no. That final page, it's hard to sort of undersell that final page and the brutality of it, and just kind of we're going to have to be better than this, because otherwise we're going to go mad and never figure anything out. So what are you giving Nice House by the Lake issue 4?
I'm going to give this 8.5.
Yeah, I think I may have to stretch to the 9.
There you go.
Really strong stuff. I think it tells its story really well. And despite the fact that it's hard to remember individual character names, it does a good job of just focusing on a character or two. In this case, it's the comedian and Molly, but it doesn't, there's enough on its own to make it work in the context of it. So I'm sure this is going to read amazingly as well once you can read it all back to back. And I mean, you can do that right now if you really want to. You can just go back and read the issues, but but yeah, but it's doing a really good job of still working really well as a monthly comic, despite the fact that it's impossible to remember who everyone is at the drop of a hat, because it's just impossible. Unless you've reread them so much at this point that you've really ingrained it into your brain. But yeah, 9 out of 10 for me. Really good stuff. I love the problem solving. Love it. All right, that takes me out of my Patreon book. Every month on patreon.com/mailfuzztv, our patrons at one of the higher tiers can make myself or Connor read a book, and I am going to look. This is my last one from last month. This is Animal Man issue 11. I'm going to look at here. So there's some big cliffhangers from the last issue with the aliens, Buddy disappearing, Vixen was there was these invisible monsters. Invisible monsters aren't back yet in this issue, just because we're elsewhere, but there's some weird reality rewriting going on, and all sorts of shenanigans happening. So the aliens are basically reconstructing Buddy, right? Now, whether or not they themselves are what made Buddy disintegrate last issue, or if it was the monster and they've just got like a backup so they're able to sort of rebuild them in their ship. But either way, they're able to do this. But it seems to maybe warp reality a little bit, because later on when we see Ellen, she's like, I don't have kids, but her friend thinks she does, so it's clearly messing with them a little bit. But not in the sense that it's rewritten reality for everyone, because her friend still thinks she has kids. But even Vixen like teleports to Africa. There's like a bright light, and she's in Africa, and Buddy's there. Buddy reforms there. His powers are back to normal. They're fixed, which is cool. And he can sense everyone around him. He can sense the giraffes that are nearby, the zebras, and everything else. So, and they're near Kilimanjaro. And there's even a tease here of Buona Beast, like where Buona Beast would live in his cave. You see his helmet. He's not in the issue, but there's just a little tease. And we've got some workers nearby who are being forced to drill into a big cavern. They're digging into the rock, looking for something. And the villain here has got a giant penis tank, which is the best thing I can call it, to be honest. It's a big tank, and it's got a big sort of cannon thing, and it's got like a sort of round tip. It's hard not to, think penis.
But now you cannot Google that.
Yeah, I don't know what you could Google. Other than Animal Man issue 11, I don't know what you could Google
that's what I'm looking for
to find this contraption. So, anyway, so yeah, the leader of this is like acting all mysterious, and they're just saying, "What are we going to do now?" There's like a sort of offhand kind of character, the villain who's behind this, who's got like a sort of headdress on, who we find out later is Hamid Ali, not Ahmed, Hamid, Hamed, yeah. There's a character that I've not encountered before, so this is a new character, at least as far as I know. It's been introduced into this issue, but we don't really get to his stuff till later. So we go back to Buddy and Vixen, and they're at a campfire, and she's cooking some meat, and she's like, "Hey, do you want something to eat?" And he's like, "No, I'm vegetarian." And she's like, "Fine, have a banana." And she tosses him a banana. Right, fair enough. Then we have a weird scene, which was really making me laugh. So basically, there's some apes nearby that are in heat, and Buddy starts like feeling that. so there's a page where he's just watching Vixen eat some meat, and she's like sort of like drilling a little bit down her chest, and it's like he's basically just in heat. He's like getting turned on. And he's like, "Oh no, I'm a married man," and it's like just runs down her skin. Her sweet scent making me dizzy. Oh god, I want to. A whole grammar of gestures, raised eyebrows, pupils dilating like signal flares. She's poetry. I'm not gonna lie, this was all amazing. This is all really funny. He actually, to the point where this big tank appears. It's not the penis tank though. This is another tank that's got like a dinosaur head.
Sweet.
So lots of things. So multiple tanks at play here. But he actually says in his narration, "Thank you, God," because it interrupts this like sexual tension that he's feeling. So this tank sort of comes after them, and the sort of the henchwoman of her villain jumps out at them. She's wearing a mask. She takes on Vixen. Animal Man jumps up and takes out some goons that are on the tank. And he like channels an elephant to ram into the tank. Although the tank's so big that I don't even think an elephant would make that much of a dent, to be honest. But he gets darted with a tranquilizer, and he passes out. The henchwoman is beat up, Vixen enough that they're both passed out, and this cloaked figure turns out to have like an ape-like face. He's got the ape sort of fur. It's got red eyes. Basically, when Buddy passes out, he gets like one glimpse of this figure, and then the final panel's just all black with the two red eyes. That's when it cuts back to Ellen, who's talking to her friend, and Ellen has no idea who her kids are, and then she vanishes from existence. So I don't know what sort of weird timey-wimey nonsense is going on. I'm sure it'll be fixed at some point, but yeah, chaos is happening.
Because this issue, or this run is so famous, kind of know where it's going, and I'm not going to spoil it.
Oh yeah, don't spoil it. I'll
yeah. It's definitely going places. That's for sure.
I have no doubt Grant Morrison's about to take me on a journey on the giant penis tank.
Yes.
So Buddy and Vixen wake up. They're in a cell in a small sort of farmy looking building. Well, yeah, like a stables looking building. And yeah, so the villain introduces himself. He says that he's taken Marie's totem, so she's not got her powers, and basically says, I can't really take your powers away, Animal Man, but these walls are thick. We're in a sort of like a compound where there's no animals for miles. You don't have access to anything. You're completely cut off. So there's the one panel of the penis tank, which is a big laser, by the way. This penis shoots a laser into the ground, which is,
Of course it does, because Grant Morrison.
So he's uncovered something in the earth, and he thinks that Animal Man and Vixen might be there for that. Obviously, they're there by happenstance. They were both teleported there through other means. Presumably, what the aliens did to him to rebuild them. Why they affected Vixen, I don't know. Like, who's to say at this point? But yes. So all this is, but yeah, this character, Hamed Ali, says that he was born before Christ. He's been alive that long.
It's making penis tanks with all that time.
Yeah, it basically says you've got until dawn until I send my henchwoman back here to kill you. Yeah, so her name's Taboo, which is, I don't know, not spelled that way. It's Tabu, but given all the horny Animal Man stuff. So then it cuts back to the aliens, and the one who's like sort of rebuilding everything in the ship with these two weird like contraptions in his hands. He actually starts to freak out. He says, "I'm losing it. I've made a terrible mistake. The Traveler's in danger." And I think it kind of implies that the Traveler is the thing in the ground that Hamed is trying to get to. That's what the Traveler is, because you sort of see like a bubble with this tank in it. Which, I mean, I say tank, it turns out to be a giant drill, effectively a laser drill. And this alien basically also seems to kind of vanish from existence, or at the very least passes out and goes all kablooey. And then we have the next morning where Taboo puts on these weird, like, sort of tribal claws. Think, what's that character from Street Fighter?
Which one?
The one with the claws. Like, I could just say Freddy Krueger.
Vega?
But, yeah, but it's making me think more like that. It's more like a martial arts sort of thing with the claws.
Yeah. No, Vega, he's got the mask.
Yeah.
So,
That's the one. So Taboo comes to the cell, and with Hamed, they're coming to kill them, and that's the cliffhanger. They say time's up, and she's got her claws out, and they look kind of worried. So definitely a weird issue. It was an enjoyable read. It flowed very well. Animal Man being horny because he could sense some other animals being in heat was pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. I will say I was enjoying the Invisible Beast from last issue so much that I'm a little disappointed that didn't like continue in some form here. Instead of like playing that out to him going back to save his wife and stuff, it sort of pivoted hard into like something else where, oh, now his wife and kids don't exist anymore. What's happening? Like, bit much to take in terms of, because I was enjoying the story anyway as it was. So I'll see where this goes. this issue on its own is enjoyable enough, but definitely I wouldn't rank it up super high compared to some of the other ones because it does take such a left turn that I don't know necessarily is the most satisfying place that it could have went. So I'll try to see.
You have one left.
I'll try and see what Grant Morrison is trying to say with this arc when I can get to the conclusion. But I'll still give this a happy 7.5, I'd say, on this one. So that's Animal Man issue 11. Okay, that was a long list.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't even that long a list, honestly. We tangented for like 20 minutes, and then Green Lantern turned into like an extra 15 minutes of nonsense. So, with that said, though, that takes out the part of the show, which is our favorite stuff of the week. Favorite panel / moment, favorite art, favorite cover, top 5 books. Simple enough. So, Matt, what was your panel / moment of the week?
It's going to be from Swamp Thing. It's the last panel where it's the giant Swamp Thing with Kazaringa versus Chemo.
It's hard to argue such a thing. What did I want? Something. The last page of Nice House in the Lake's hard to top in a lot of ways. I kind of loved a lot of the Swamp Thing pages. I think I'm going to go with Batman, though. I think I'm going to go with
Scarecrow.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably Scarecrow standing in the rain, looking at the Batmobile.
That was a almost.
Yeah, I really like that page. There's even an argument for that teaser of the final page of Infinite Frontier.
Yeah. It's a good one too.
Just for the shenanigans of it all. But no, I'm going to go with Scarecrow and Batman. All right, cover of the week. Do you have anything picked out?
Oh yeah, it's a Batman variant with Scarecrow. I don't know who did it, but it is fantastic.
Good question.
That's the Molina cardstock.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. I've not had a chance to really look at these, so I'm just kind of glancing. The regular and the variants for Nice House in the Lake are pretty good. The variants, Walter with his like heads, split.
Yeah.
As it is.
Very unsettling. I like the Black Manta variant too. It's the what's this? The Sanford Green.
The limited variant of Infinite Frontier, which is just like a really nice drawing of Darkseid, is actually very nice as well. So well worth looking at that. Swamp Thing's variant's really pretty. That's the Matina, and it very very rare I can resist the Matina variant. You know,
right?
You know how I roll on that side of things. It's a tough week. I think I'm gonna go with the Nice House in the Lake variant with Walter. I think that's probably my favorite. But yeah, a lot of good covers to pick from. There's a lot of books, admittedly, so I mean, you'd hope there's a lot of good covers to pick from. What is your favorite art of the week?
It's hard to go against Nice House on the Lake, but Swamp Thing's up there with Perkins. Batman with Jiminez is good, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Nice House.
I think if Sharp didn't have those like 2 or 3 blunder moments,
it would have been.
There'd been an 100%. Argument.
Yeah.
But I'm also tempted to even put in a Black Manta into the consideration, but
yeah,
I think I'm going to go with Nice House in the Lake as well. It's the boring choice because it's the one we both picked, but hey, what's your top 5?
All right, so going through these, number 1 is going to be Swamp Thing. Number 2 is Nice House on the Lake. Number 3 is Batman. Number 4 is Green Lantern Annual. No, Infinite Frontier, Green Lantern Annual. No, Batman Catwoman. I can't remember. Yeah, we'll go 2 Nice and Clean. 1 Swamp Thing, 2 Nice House on the Lake, 3 Batman, 4 Infinite Frontier, 5 Batman Catwoman. Got it.
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that because the first one was a bit of a mess to follow.
Oh, big time. Well, that's what happens when I get starving.
Oh, I'm hungry too. I'm starving as well. So I'm going to go Nice House in the Lake at number 1. Number 2, I'll go Swamp Thing. Number 3, I'll go Batman. Number 4, I'll go Infinite Frontier. And then number 5, Batman Catwoman. I think that
Very
lines
similar.
up with what I said. Yeah. So cool. There you go. I will tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So coming out next week, I think. Wait. Aye. I was just checking the dates there. So next week from DC Comics we have Justice League 67, which Matt might be reading.
Maybe.
I've dropped it. Wonder Woman 779's out. The Joker issue 7's out. I do read that for a patron, so that'll be read. Rorschach issue 12. Oh baby, that's a biggie. I can't wait to talk about that now. Batman Urban Legends issue 7. Batman 89 issue 2. Superman the Authority issue 3. Future State Gotham issue 5. I Am Batman issue 1. Wait, didn't this already? Oh no, it was issue 0. It was an issue 0.
Yeah,
I was
it was issue 0.
I was getting
Wait,
confused.
did you freeze again?
No, I was getting confused because I'm like, I'm sure I read this already. It was issue 0. Justice League Last Ride issue 5. Harley Quinn the Animated Series Eat, Bang, Kill Tour issue 1. Titans United issue 1. Batman The Adventures Continues season 2 issue 4. Challenge of the Super Sons issue 6. Batman Scooby Doo Mysteries issue 6. Pennyworth issue 2 rounds out the list.
I might have no choice but to read Justice League.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of books next week. I think I might do 2 Patreon books next week.
Well, this is all the future stuff for Urban Legends, so I'll be skipping that.
I mean, I might read Future State because I don't have much else. Like, I've got Rorschach, I've got Joker, and I Am Batman. You know, I'll try issue 1 of that, even though issue 0 was a bit weaker than I was hoping for. But yeah, I didn't like Batman 89 that much, so I probably won't read that. Maybe I'll catch up on Future State Gotham, but I didn't read the last one. Oh, that's just annoying. Why did I have 9 books this week, but there's like 3 next week?
I know.
This is stupid. I mean, there's a lot of books. I guess it's just because it just happens to be a lot that I've dropped.
Yep.
There's not really much I could do about that, I suppose. All right, well, look forward to next week. Catch up on Wonder Woman, Matt. You need to talk about Wonder Woman next week.
Maybe.
Do you not want to?
No, I'm just saying if I have time.
Well, I'm saying prioritize that over reading Justice League since you actually might like Wonder Woman.
Maybe I have like 2-3 issues to catch up on Wonder Woman.
There's a logic to it, though.
There is. I get it.
And if you're not reading Urban Legends, which is like 80 pages, then you know what you.
That's what I'm saying. I almost have to read Justice League. So like.
Hey, we might even take
this is annoying. I hate when they do this.
We might even take questions for the first time in ages next week because there's less books. Yeah. We'll just have to talk for an hour on Rorschach, man. That's fine. I'm sure we can get an hour out of that.
I'm sure we could.
Yeah.
Hey, but I'm starving now, so why don't you tell us the Patreon producers? I'm also missing Rampage.
This is Connor's fault for moving the recording to Friday and then bailing, right?
Yes, I know. I'm starving. My wife is starving. I'm gonna get yelled at. So I'm missing Rampage.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go watch.
Talking right now.
I'm going to go watch Rampage myself. Right, as soon as I'm done, I'm going to put that up when I'm eating. So Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley are our
Excelsior
Patreon producers for the month. You can, of course, be a producer yourself at the $20 tier or more, but of course you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month and help keep all the content coming. And at the $5 tier, you get early access to the show by a day. So go and have a look and see if you want to support us financially. But you can, of course, support us in a bunch of free ways as well. You can hit like on YouTube, subscribe, comment. All those things help on YouTube by a bunch. If you're listening to the audio version on the audio podcast app, whatever it may be, iTunes, Podcast Addict, whatever, if you give us a review and a 5-star rating, that helps us out a bunch. Or, of course, just share us. You can get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. Share us via that. All these things do help, so anything you can do is appreciated a ton. And do let us know what you thought of the books in the comments, whether that be on YouTube or on Twitter. It's always nice to hear your thoughts once the show goes out. Yeah, is that all my plugging? Check out MailFuzz TV and MailFuzz Movies, the YouTube channels for TV reviews and movie podcasts. I'll mention those. But I think that's everything. I'm feeling rushed because Matt's like going, hey, I want to eat. Move.
I'm getting hangry.
I think that's everything. If I've missed anything, forgive me, dear
You won't
dear
like me when I'm
audience.
hangry.
You've been a wonderful audience, I assume. Except David. He's the
Yeah.
worst.
Sure. And Connor's the worst. He was never gonna watch this though.
He's not audience though. He's just
All right,
awful
cool.
on his own. But that's us. That's been episode 270 of Comics From The Multiverse. Thank you for joining us once again. We always appreciate it. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
Maddie Hungy.